Good evening. I'd like to call to order tonight's meeting of the ISD 191 Burnsville-Egan Savage School Board. The date is December 12th, 2019, and the time is 6:30. I'd like to start by welcoming folks in our audience who are here to join us tonight, as well as those who are at home. I will also call out just a couple of items that folks might not have noticed that are included in tonight's agenda, and that includes scheduling a meeting. We're being asked to schedule a meeting on Thursday, December 19th, to continue discussing facilities, attendance boundaries, and the FY21 budget. And since most staff and families are impacted by these discussions, I encourage everyone to stay for that, to add that to your calendar. We're also, at the end of our meeting, after we adjourn, we are adjourning to a workshop, committee of the whole, to discuss a recommendation for a new policy, 509 Intra-District Transfer, or variance enrollment, that addresses variances for students whose families wish to have them attend a school other than the one in their own neighborhood. With that, Director Hume, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now open the Truth and Taxation hearing portion of the board meeting. The purpose of the Truth and Taxation hearing is to present the following information. We need to approve the agenda first. Sorry. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda tonight. Moved by Director Schott, second? Second. Seconded by Director Hume. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Now we will open the Truth and Taxation portion of our meeting. As I said before, the purpose of the Truth and Taxation hearing is to present the following information: the current year budget and actual revenue and expenses for the prior year, the proposed property tax levy, the percentage of change over the prior year, specific purposes and reasons for which taxes are being increased, and to allow for public comments. Public comments will be heard after the budget and property tax presentation. We will be following the procedures outlined in Board Policy 207, Public Hearings. Anyone wishing to address the board must have signed up prior to the meeting. Lisa Ryder, Executive Director of Business Services, is at the podium at the presenters table for the budget and property tax presentation. Welcome, Lisa. There are no speakers. Thank you.
Good evening. On an annual basis, we hold a Truth and Taxation hearing for our general public. Tonight is that evening for us, and this is reflective of our taxes payable in 2020, which will provide revenue for our fiscal year 2020-2021 school year. As we begin, there are certain things that our presentation must cover per state law, and that is listed on this screen. And from that, then we have developed this agenda for this evening, which we will give a background on some school funding and property tax levies and budgets. We will provide information on our current district budget. We will also dive in a little bit to the taxes payable for 2020 that are proposed, so that we can break it down by the general fund and other funds and have discussion around which ones have larger adjustments up or down. And lastly, there would be opportunity for public comments and questions should there have been any. As we move into this, let's first discuss our school funding. It's really highly regulated by the state. There's very little that school boards actually have ability to adjust when it comes to the school funding. The state sets the formulas, they set the tax policy for local schools, they set the maximum amount that's authorized on the property tax levy. What school boards can do is submit referendums for operating and capital needs to voters for approval. This is a slide which was used in the past years as well, and it helps to just try and understand the formula allowance. When you hear formula allowance, it's referring to our general fund, and it is referring to how many dollars per pupil unit a school district will receive in funding. So this goes back to 2003 and shows kind of there's two lines. One is the red line, which is adjusted for pupil weight change and inflation. So this is if the annual inflation had been applied since 2003, what that number would look like. The green dotted line that you see is a formula allowance for the general fund that is adjusted for the pupil weight change, but is what we have actually received in the tax levies that you've seen in the past as well as currently. So there is a little bit of a gap between those two lines, and as you look at that little bit that you see actually equates to about $596 for fiscal year 19, the year we just audited. And that's 9.4% difference. And that is partly the challenge that we have, is the fact that our funding is not necessarily keeping up with that inflationary cost that we have. So when you calculate your revenues, you're taking this formula and multiplying it by the students who are serving. And that generates the revenue then that is available for schools to function. As we move into the next slide, this is now starting to talk about our School District ISD 191's budget. And in this case, the budget as well as the actual audited data that is, I'll say, fresh off the press, and the fact that tonight is also the night you're receiving the audit report and the information that would be available later in the meeting, we actually have presented here as well as part of this presentation, because it does reflect our ending balances for fund balances as well as our revenues and expenditures that have been audited for the past school year. This page here alone is the general fund, and if you're viewing from home or look at that which is on the website, you will find that you can zoom in and find this a little more easily read. It does start out with a beginning balance, the audited revenues, the audited expenditures, and then the ending audited balance on the far right. This breaks down our fund balances quite extensively, and you'll see a lot of zeros on the restricted area because we have only two of the the many possible areas, or I shouldn't say two, but there's three, I guess now, four that we have now that encompass our restricted reserves. Otherwise, we are typically spending every dollar that is available to us in the restricted areas on those areas. Taking a look at the next slide, it is the other funds other than the general fund. So we have our food service, our community education, our capital projects fund. This is similar to our LTFM and our building construction that had been bonded previously, and remaining funds that we have. Our debt service, our internal service funds, which is where our health and our dental self-insured funds lie, along with our OPEB. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, and then trust funds. We'll hear more about these dollars and balances later in the meeting tonight as well. We want to now talk a little bit about our current budget. Our budget at this time is reflective of that which you approved back in June. That is the adopted budget for the 2019-2020 school year. And so we have repeated these slides here for the general public so they can understand what that budget looks like. We have not yet revised our budget for the current year. That will take place in January and February as we finish that work based on the audited numbers. And then from there, you will also find us preparing the budget for the 2020-2021 school year. Here is the adopted revenue budget for the general fund alone, and you can see the green, which is 57% of the revenue generated, and our budget is intended to be coming from general state aid, and that's that gen ed formula we talked about earlier being reflected. You see a purple slice of the pie there that is the 14%, and that's the state categorical aid. These are funds that are state-driven, but they are specific for certain purposes. A common example is compensatory funds. Then you have our federal aid, which is 3% of our total revenue in the budget for the current school year. And our property taxes make up 23% of our current year's budget. Other local revenue makes up another 3%. Our next slide talks about our current year's budget expenditures. This is broken down by program, and when we talk about program, we are referring to the type of the departmental budgets you might think of, right? So you have instruction, and you have similarly, that is at 64%. And then over on the right, you see the purple, which is the instructional pupil support, which typically goes hand in hand with that instruction. And so combined, you see 64% and 12%, or 76% of our budget is in instruction and instructional pupil support. Operations and maintenance is 7%, our administration is 4%, district support services is 4%, fixed costs under 1%, our capital facilities 1%, and our transportation costs are 6%, with long-term facility maintenance being 2%. That encompasses the current year's budget broken down by program area. The next slide takes the same information and breaks it down by how is it exactly used. Not so much by program, but more what types of expenditures are these. And so you see salaries and wages alone are 58%, and the benefits you will find over to the right in the blue there for 22%. Combined, that makes up 80% of our budget between the salaries, wages, and benefits. The other 20% is made up of the purchase services at 14%, supplies at 2%, capital expenditures at 3%, and other expenditures 1%. That is, again, the current year's expenditure budget. We want to now shift in the presentation to our conversation around our current proposed payable 2020 levy. And what you see here is a slide that compares this levy to that which would have been brought before the board a year ago for the Pay 2019 levy limitation. It is broken down by 4 basic areas: the general fund, the community service, the general debt service, and OPEB trust service. So you can see the comparison by those categories across the years, and the increase and decrease by dollar amount, with a far right column showing the percent change. We will be talking about the significant changes. I have pulled out the changes that are over $100,000 on each of the different areas, and we'll briefly talk about those as we go forward. This is a one-page summary. It does give you that total amount at the very bottom, and in the far right lower corner, you will find it. This particular the Pay 2020 limitation is 1.24% increase over the previous year. These numbers do include the referendum that was recently approved by our voters in November. Property tax statements that were sent home in November did not include the referendum results at that point in time. So these numbers do include that, and with those numbers included, it is a 1.24% increase. We want to now look at the property tax levy for taxes payable in 2020 broken down by line items. This is a 40-page document with a whole lot of formulas that is then summarized on about 4 pages. We're going to break it down here so you can see this as they're grouped together. That which is light purple are the accumulation of the line items that refer to our referendum. Okay, over the last few years, there's been some tax law, or there's been law change. There's been changes to the law with regard to how the referendum is broken down and what it's called, and so you see 4 lines that actually make up that total. As you compare payable 2019 to payable 20, and you look at that increase or decrease, we're going to take a look at that total amount in a moment, but I want you to know that those 4 lines are going to be taken together. As you look down the rest of the line items, you can see by category the title, the payable 19 and the payable 20 compared with a dollar amount on the far right. Long-term facilities maintenance levy is something that is fairly new to the districts across the state in the last few years. But we are well ingrained in that, in the fact that we've been doing alt facility projects throughout our district for a number of years. They now call it the Long-Term Facilities Maintenance Levy, and it's available to all schools. This is the general fund page. In total, you can see that our net general levies for the general fund are $1,113,286 increase. Most of that, all of it really is attributable to the referendum, and we'll talk about that exact amount as we move forward. Let's take a look at Community Service Fund next, and this is a summary of the entire Community Service Fund. You will see there's an increase here of $265,247. We'll talk about that reason in a moment. The next slide is our general debt service, as well as what we call OPEB, other post-employment benefits. We sold bonds back in 2009, and we still have that as part of our debt, so it is kept separate and tracked separately on levy in our school finances. So you see them broken down here in two different totals. You do see significant decreases on that debt. We're going to talk about why in a moment. These next few slides talk about the reasons for the decreases and increases that you might have seen. And so the first thing that we want to discuss is that referendum, location optional, and equity revenue levy. This reflects again that November 2019 voter-approved referendum and is an increase of $1,607,915. It also reflects $339,415 increase due to long-term facilities maintenance levy. This is reflective of the 10-year plan that we have brought to you and the fact that we have increased programs that we are doing in this next payable 20 levy that requires that additional funding of $339,415. The next slide talks about the capital projects referendum levy. This is the vote that our voters approved back in 2015 in February when we asked for a capital project referendum. These are the dollars that fund our one-to-one solutions we have in our schools, as well as our digital learning specialists across the district elementary schools. These dollars show an increase of $219,351. If you recall, this is not based on, the formula is a little bit different than other like operating referendum dollars. This is based on a rate. And so as your property valuation overall in the district increases, so do these dollars, okay? Still talking about the general fund, this year is a little bit unique in the fact that we have a very large negative adjustment to our levy. Adjustments are very common in the levy process. What it is when we do the levies, you're doing a lot of estimates up front. You're estimating the enrollment for students across the district for 3 years out, and those can be kind of tricky to estimate when you might have fluctuations from year to year. So what you find happening is that there's a kind of a 2-year delay on finding out exactly what the actuals are from a year that is final, done, audited, and submitted to the state for final information. So for us, there's a number of FY17, fiscal year 17, and fiscal year 18 final adjustments. And as a result of the fact that we had lower enrollments, particularly in that fiscal year 18, those dollar amounts are reflecting then a negative adjustment where we're providing those dollars back to the taxpayers because back 2 years previous, they had been levied for a higher estimated number. Does that make sense? As you look at the second bullet, this breaks down how much of that negative adjustment is a result of our changed estimates for fiscal year 20, that's our current school year. But when we gave the information for our payable 19 levy a year ago, the estimates then were higher than what we're now saying our estimates are, and so there's a negative adjustment for that particular process. It just kind of overlaps, and because the decline in our enrollment has been as it has for the last 2 or 3 years, these are kind of doubling up on us a little bit now, and you're seeing a larger number that is a negative adjustment. Okay, it all balances itself in the end, but it is something that is clearly significant this year compared to past years. And finally, we have the abatement adjustments, which is also a very common adjustment on the levies, where that goes up and down depending upon what might be submitted to the counties. So if a taxpayer does not feel that their property tax statement is accurate, they can appeal that, and basically it's abated, and then it may be that that's something that through the process is determined they do need to pay or they don't need to pay, and those adjustments then come through in the tax levies as they're finalized. Our next adjustment we want to talk about is in the Community Service Levy, Fund Levy. This is also based on our actual information from fiscal year 18 for the school age care program. And this is a reflection of a year in which our actual expenditures were far higher than that which had been previously levied. Remember, our levies are, that far in advance of a year out, and so how much we were anticipating needing to cover the cost of our school age care, and these are for students who require additional needs. That increased significantly to $265,677 in that year alone, and it was at that point in time that we increased the levy from $600,000 to $800,000, and that is reflected on an annual basis. In our general debt service fund, you will find that we have a reduction in the debt schedule. This is reflective of the refinancing that we have done over the years. And so as we had told taxpayers there was a savings that would be incurred, this is where those dollars go back to the taxpayers, is through this negative adjustment here. The adjustment for the debt excess is returned to taxpayers as well, and what that is a matter of every year you're levying the amount that is your principal and your interest on your payments plus 5%. And that protects us from not having enough funds in order to make payments on the principal and interest payments that are required in the event that there might be abatements or other things that cause the dollars not to be necessarily paid into the county in time. And so this is a protection, and yet at the same time it doesn't, the state law does not allow us to accumulate too much. And so they do a calculation on an annual basis, and this is where those dollars get refunded back to our taxpayers. For us, we have a unique situation as well. We lease one of our buildings already to an entity, so that particular building happens to have debt remaining. So the rental payments that we receive is required to go to the general debt service unless otherwise stated by law. And this is also reflecting those rental payments included in that dollar amount that is being refunded to taxpayers. In our other post-employment benefit debt service fund, there is no notable change to discuss on adjustments or increases or decreases. We want to now shift to the portion of the discussion which is about the Payable 2020 taxes, and we want to talk a little bit about what is the true tax impact to our taxpayers based on the valuation of their property. So what you see here is a lot of numbers. This is reflective of 2020 school year payable, excuse me, the Payable 2020 levy being compared to the past 3 years. So you can see estimated market values for 2017 taxes, 2018 taxes, 2019 taxes, and then we also have our estimated market value for 2020 taxes. You see a column in the yellow that is without the referendum and that which is the approved referendum. We show this because taxpayers received notices that did not include the referendum. So they should be able to kind of take a look at what is their estimated valuation on their property tax statement, find something close, and see if that makes sense for the amount of taxes for us. And then they can also see separately how much it might have increased then just due to the referendum, because that's the one thing that's missing from their property tax statement. We're going to take a look at a few slides here that take this information into a visual and breaks it down by the 4 different settings we've asked for. Certainly from home or on the web, you can find this information and blow this up so you can read it a little closer, but these slides also help us. As we look at the slides in a moment, these are the assumptions that are being made. There is a base amount of 18.3% cumulative change in 3 years from 2017 to 2020 taxes that is assumed. This is based off from information for the area of Burnsville alone. This does not necessarily reflect Eagan or Savage, as Burnsville covers most of our district, but not all. And that is the main one that we usually show on a comparative basis from year to year. For all of the following 4 examples, these are the assumptions that have been made. It is reflecting the changes in market value for 17 to 18 of 5% increase, a 6% increase from 18 to 2019, and a 6.3% estimated increase from 2019 to 2020. These charts have been made available to us by our financial advisors, Ellers. As you take a look at this first slide, it is a $200,000 value residential homestead property, and you can see the taxes that are actual in the past 3 years compared to the 2020 estimated taxes. You also see above the yellow the amount that is in blue, and that darker portion of that 2020 bar represents the estimated taxes associated with the operating referendum increase that was approved by our voters on November 5th, 2019. As we take a look at the next example, this visual shows the same information, but now for a $350,000 valued residential homestead property. Our third slide shows the information for a commercial industrial property valued at $2 million. And our last slide is a visual of an apartment property valued at $750,000 for a comparison of those 3 years. We want to make note for our property tax owners, our property owners who, when they look at their property tax statement, find that they have a significant increase, or maybe they're on a limited budget themselves, they have fixed income. If that's the case, we do encourage people to please inquire of a tax professional, as there are property tax refund programs available. And we would like for people to know and understand those so that if they have seen a significant increase, they may find also that opportunity for a refund should it be available to them. But we advise that they talk with a tax professional for that information. And later this evening, this is an action item on the agenda for our board to consider and certify the there is a request for the Board of Education certification of the final levy for Payable 2020, which again will fund our school year of 2020-2021. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Clerk Schatz informs me that we have no speakers signed up for the public hearing, and that will conclude the truth and taxation portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Turning next to the information portion of our meeting, we are staying with Lisa Ryder, and we will also invite Dennis Hogeveen, CPA and Principal, Clifton Larson Allen LLP. We are receiving the audit report on fiscal year 19. Welcome back, Dennis. Good to see you.
Thank you. Are you starting it? You commenting it all? All right.
Thank you. This evening is our opportunity for our auditing firm, Clifton Larson Allen, to be able to present to you the audit report. This is reflective of the 2018-2019 school year. Our audit has taken place this past fall. Robin Pickle, our Director of Finance, is here, as well as her team did quite a bit of the work in preparing for the audit. Dennis will speak to you about the results of the audit in his PowerPoint that is available on the web as well, and we believe you all have your printed copies also. Tomorrow, after, assuming this is approved tonight, then we would be posting the final copies online as well under the website. The materials electronically were also made available within the board packet. I'll turn it over to Dennis now.
Thank you for having me. We are here to talk about the audit results, as Lisa said. It's about 180 pages worth of information between the CAFR. The district puts together a CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. You wouldn't have to do that. It's certainly not required, but you've done it for a number of years. Bond rating agencies tend to like it, lenders. Anybody that has an interest in school finance loves the fact that you put together a CAFR. There's a lot of great historical, statistical data in there, transmit letter, and things like that. So it just really is a signal to the public that you're going above and beyond providing financial information to the public, and we appreciate it. I always want to start by thanking the people who do the heavy lifting, though, of the audit. I mean, this was a very, very challenging year. I don't know how much of that's been communicated to the board, but the straddling of finance systems between two different systems over the whole year turned out to be challenging. And I think I've never seen such celebration going on when the audit was done. They were very, very excited, so they are much deserving of a calm year in 2020. So hopefully everything calms down and you've got all the pieces in place for it to be, timely, return to a more normal schedule. I mean, it just was a stressful year with the changeover in the finance system, but they did a fantastic job. And I was telling Robin before the meeting, what I was intending to tell you is that, I mean, what I appreciated is the fact that their stick-to-itiveness, as stressful as it was and how challenging it was, they always kept their heads up and got the work done, and they were always very, very responsive to our requests for information. They've developed a really, really great working relationship with the auditors and do just a fantastic job of being responsive, and appreciate all of Lisa's involvement as well in terms of the review that you do and the input that you give us and things like that. So what we're going to do tonight, if you don't mind, is we've extracted from the executive audit summary just some highlights from that to put together into the PowerPoint. And I hope, if you've had a chance to review the executive audit summary, I hope one of the things you take away from that is the fact that we were really trying to be very purposeful in trying to make it more visual. What we're finding is not only board members, but the public as well, they don't necessarily want to see a lot of just endless numbers and small numbers, and we're trying to make it more graphical and tell a story by making it interesting, but easily understandable. So hopefully, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but hopefully you found that to be the case as you went through the executive audit summary, and we're going to pick up on some of that in the PowerPoint tonight. So I'm going to have Lisa be my navigator, and what we're going to do is just go through the audit results themselves. So of course, the main thing that you're hiring an auditing firm to do is to give an opinion on the financial statements. First and foremost responsibility is to give that opinion, and what we have been able to issue is what's known as a clean or an unmodified audit report. So it's as good of an audit report as we are able to give any Minnesota school district. And then by state statute, we're required to follow governmental auditing standards, and there's two different aspects to that. It's an opinion letter called the Yellow Book letter because it was issued under a yellow cover many, many years ago. And there's a compliance aspect to that letter, and then also an internal control aspect to that letter. We had no findings to report on the compliance side of that. We had one material weakness that we did report for the proposing of a material audit adjustment, and I believe the details of that have been provided to you from Lisa to you as board members. So to the extent you want to discuss it, that'd be great. But it's just from our point of view, a one-time thing, somewhat related to the conversion of the finance system. So for that reason, we don't feel like it's something that we would expect to ever be repeated at all. And then because you expended more than $750,000 of federal funds, we had to do a single audit again. And just get on my soapbox briefly, but you're going to see in here what a small percentage of the total general fund funding is federal. I think it's like 4%, and you might have had that in your slide. But it's about 20% of the audit effort, so it's very disproportionate. So if you ever get the ear of a legislator at the national level, make sure you are kind of hinting to that, maybe that should be indexed to be more reasonable. There's no real point to having 4% of your funding have 20% of the audit effort, and things like that. But in terms of the single audit, we tested the child nutrition cluster. We had two what I consider to be minor technicalities. They didn't rise to the level of being a material weakness, but they were reported as significant deficiencies. But as Lisa, again, I was shared with the explanation that she provided to, it was very thorough. And sometimes these are just technicalities. You are going through an audit, so to the extent we're required to report them, even if we feel like they're trivial, it doesn't mean things weren't being done. Sometimes it comes down to just being able to document it and prove that you are doing something, So documentation is a huge thing in audit. So, and then we're required to do a Minnesota legal compliance audit based on guidance put together by the Office of the State Auditor. They put together a checklist, very thick checklist of different state statutes that we have to test your compliance with. We had two findings this year. One related to the prompt payment of bills. So if you meet monthly as a board, you have 35 days basically to pay your bills. And if we find one that you didn't pay within that 35-day time frame, we have to report that as technically a violation of state statute. But again, almost, in my experience, almost never comes down to the business office dropping the ball in any way. It's because an administrator kept it on their desk and didn't get it to the business office in time. Unfortunately, they take the wrath for it, but don't typically have the responsibility for that. And then there was one outstanding check, and there's some unclaimed property requirements in terms of turning that over to the state, and you had some outstanding checks that needed to be dealt with. The last student activity audit that we're going to be doing for the district, you took action, I believe, in June to bring the student activity accounts under board control. So for 2020, those are going to be part of the general fund. So you won't need a separate standalone student activity audit after this particular year. We once again reported that you had some inactive student activity accounts, which are technically not allowed, but I think from a practical standpoint, I would do the exact same thing if I wasn't confident that the activity wasn't going to resurrect and, become active again. You might as well just leave them open. And then there's a standard finding that all Minnesota school districts have because you're following basically a cash basis activity there. This is a slide that Lisa used in her Truth and Taxation hearing. This is just summarizing the activity of the general fund. You can see here, it's a lot of small numbers, and I maybe should have gotten rid of the detail for purposes of the PowerPoint so it wasn't such tiny numbers. But in terms of what I really like about this particular summary is it does show where you started the year. Started the year with a total fund balance of $15,815,000. Total audited revenues were at $131,545,000, and then total expenditures at $132,076,000. We always do two main things with this particular slide, and it's really to bring your attention always up to the unassigned category, because a lot of different aspects to the general fund, but the unassigned is where you as board members make most of your decisions as far as programmatically what you want to do. Considering, things like enrollment declines and things like that, it's up to the school board to make the tough decisions, as you know, as far as how much you want to draw down fund balance to maintain programming, and certainly with some decisions that you're going to be making yet tonight. All of those things factor into that. So the unassigned category is that main area where you have to make those tough decisions. The ending fund balance for June 30, 2019, the unassigned category, the 7.7 represents about 5.86 million. And as Lisa indicated, the legislature likes to attach strings to things. So everything under the restricted category is what the legislature gives you $1, but they tell you how you have to spend it. And I always like to point out gifted and talented as one example. The way we present it here, the legislature gives you $123,000 to spend on the gifted and talented program, but the district has chosen to spend $738,000 on gifted and talented. So you can see the $615,000 comes from the unassigned category to invest in the district's gifted and talented program, and then it brings it down to a zero fund balance. But again, the restricted amounts doesn't really matter if it started the year at 4.1 million or it ends at 5.5 million. Those dollars have to be expended in the way that the legislature intended, using the proper code under UFARs. So the other thing with, again, is in past years, you've gotten very used to the fact that your results are always very close to what the board had approved. And I guess in terms of $131 million, the difference on total revenues was $955,000 or 0.73%. Very, very good. On the total expenditures, they were within $888,000 or 0.67%. But that's not news to you as board members, because that has historically been the case, that you're getting very good information. You don't have the regret of coulda, shoulda, woulda, done something different had you had different information. So again, it's been very consistent, and the results are very consistent with what the board had envisioned for the district. In terms of other funds of the district, Lisa had pointed out, I think you might have put these all in one, but here it's broken down into two separate ones. The food service program ended with a fund balance of $1,014,000. You can see there the revenues were about $316,000 lower than the final amended budget. And I guess I'm going to go on a limb here and say that I think, anecdotally, I think what I've been hearing with other school districts is about 3% snow days has had a significant impact in terms of you're just not serving the meals on days when kids aren't here necessarily. So again, both the revenues and expenditures were lower, but the net result was within $50,000 of what the board had approved for the budget. So very good there. And basically, the only thing you can do with fund balance of the food service program is invest in the capital needs of the child nutrition program. So as those needs arise, I think you had originally budgeted something like 300,000, 367,000 for capital items, but you didn't expend like 300,000 of that or something.
No,
So, yeah, so most of the variance on the expenditure side was just strictly a timing difference as far as when capital needs arose. In terms of the community education program, started the year with a fund balance of 408,000. You can see it's a very successful program in terms of the revenues coming in higher than what had been budgeted. Correspondingly, if you're going to have more classes that people are choosing to pay for, you're going to have increased costs. But the net result was within $8,700 of what the budget had reflected. So that's very good, just a good indication of a successful community education program that is offering programming that people are choosing to participate in. Lisa went through the capital projects funds, the debt service fund, just to kind of draw the connection between the audit and the truth and taxation. As she indicated, there's mechanisms in place, you know, so that you don't over levy constantly and accumulate too much fund balance in the debt service fund. That's reflecting the decisions that you've made to refund debt and save taxpayers significant dollars in the debt service program. It's very proactive of a school board to see the opportunities to do those things. Internal service funds are functioning as intended to keep, you know, the rates stable, and just nothing there to comment on in terms of, other than just saying it's a good idea to be using those types of programs to stabilize rates and things like that. In terms of the 5-year historical trend of the general fund balance, you can see the unassigned category there went from 13% in 2016, and now it's at 5.86%. And you're making some decisions to, I think, not have that go any lower, I believe. In terms of student enrollment, again, no surprise there, but the only thing I chose this particular slide just because it sort of jumps out at you in terms of open enrollment, the impact there. Your open enrollment in has been very consistent at that 558 up to 574 for open enrollment in. Your open enrollment out, the gap's been actually increasing a little bit over these last few years. In terms of revenue sources of the general fund, what I have found interesting in this particular slide for school districts in 2019 is it's the first time, for those of you that have been on the school board for a number of years, you realize that this is the first time in a very long period of time, Lisa will relate to this, that you have no impact of the tax shift on here. The tax shift is a mechanism that the legislature uses to balance the state's budget in times when the economy heads south and they need to withhold aid and do these accounting mechanisms that says a tax shift. They tell you to advance recognized tax revenue, but they withhold the aid. So they tell you to give you an account entry called the tax shift. And it really makes a graph like this really difficult to explain to the public because you get these wide fluctuations in terms of how much was state aid in a given year and how much was taxes. This is the first time in a very long period of time that you have 5 full years of no impact of tax shifts. So you're really seeing truly what local taxpayers are paying and what the state aid was. What I found interesting, and I think most people, when you sit through a truth and taxation hearing, I think when we're paying our individual tax bills, we think we're funding, 100% of the cost of funding a school district, when in reality it was 23.2% for 2019. 71% of the cost, 71.5 was state aid. So I think there's a misperception there sometimes in terms of what the local taxpayers are paying. In terms of total general fund expenditures, I like to report out by object series, and this is very consistent with what Lisa also reported for 2020, but for 2019, if you added the 57% for salaries and the 23% for employee benefits, it's the same 80% that she referenced in her truth and taxation hearing. Again, just to draw back up to the total there, the total expenditures on 132 million were within 888,000 or 0.67% for the year. So very good on a net basis. In terms of meals served, we started reporting a few years ago the percentage of total meals served by free, reduced, and then full price. Your full price meals have been very consistent at about 35%. And as we already mentioned, partly due to the decline in enrollment, but also partly due to snow days for 2019. The meal count went down slightly. And that's been true, other than one school district I met with this last week where their numbers actually went up somehow. Everyone has consistently been this particular result for 2019, where it's gone down. We're trying to give you some basis of comparisons. A lot of times school boards like to know how is our school district doing to the 7-county metro area average and an enrollment of greater than 4,000 students or ADM. So this is just simply profiles data, trying to imitate it somewhat for Burnsville, Egan, for the year 2018, if it's not available yet from the profiles report published by the Department of Education. But again, nothing different than what you've been accustomed to. You know, you've got some areas where your cost per student is higher than the averages and others where it's lower. The one I would point out, just to give some praise to the Community Service Department, Community Service, when you have a mathematical calculation that shows that your cost per student is higher than average, that's a really good thing, because it's a good indication that you're offering programming that people are choosing to participate in. So it's kind of the reverse of everything else. But community ed, you really want that number to be high, because it's really saying we're offering programming that people are choosing to participate in. Those were the things I had marked as far as the executive audit summary. I would be more than happy to go through any questions if there are such for me. We appreciate very much the opportunity to serve the school district. And again, hopefully you are picking up on the fact that our staff really enjoy working with your staff. They've developed a very good working relationship, and we know how hard they work to get the job done. And the result of that is the good information that we're able to report to you tonight. To the extent you do have questions later that we don't get to, though, my contact information is here. So I'd be glad to stand for any questions if someone has one for me.
Great. Thank you very much, Dennis. Board members, I'll open it up for questions or comments. Director Schatz.
I have a comment more than a question. So I can't say that I got excited about the audit, so I won't. Yeah, I know, but I will. I do want to say thank you to you and your staff, and certainly to our staff. I guess I didn't realize that the shift, of course, between two different accounting systems, that we made this year would have posed a significant challenge in preparing this, and so. Thank you for mentioning that, and so commendations to our staff for taking that on and producing. Again, I'm not surprised that our numbers are so close to what they projected, like you pointed out, the 0.067. I mean, that's because they do a really good job of telling us where we are and giving us the options. It makes it easier to make those kinds of decisions for the district. So thank you for the audit, and thank you to our staff.
Thank you, Director Schatz. Any other comments or questions? No? I don't think I had any. Oh, just kind of dovetailing on Director Schatz's question or comment, knowing that the systems were kind of coming together and we were going through that transition, I understand that we didn't get quite the same amount of time with the audit report that we normally do, and I'm assuming next year we'll be back the same as we typically are. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Dennis. Always appreciate your presentation and the information that you provide us. And I'm sure if anyone else has any other questions after the fact, we will be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, next I would like to invite Emina Aftadal, Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, to the speaking table. We are receiving a report on the World's Best Workforce and Achievement and Integration Report. Welcome, Emina.
Thank you. Chair Ault, members of the board, Superintendent Battle. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share our progress. Just so that I can make it clear, the World's Best Workforce is aligned to the Achievement Integration, and for the Department of Education, we submit one single progress report that includes the information from both programs. So that's what you're going to receive tonight. The World's Best Workforce, they have across the state these 5 goals. All students are ready for kindergarten. Students are reading proficient by grade 3. They have the goal of closing the achievement gap among all groups. college and career readiness, and all students graduate. Using these 5 goals as a framework, and we apply those to many different pieces throughout the district. They are our overall teaching and learning roadmap that keeps us aligned in all of our programming. I'm going to share with you each of the goals that we had for World's Best Workforce and each of the goals for achievement and integration, and share with you what the goal was, what our results were, and what our targets are for 2020. Okay. I also want to make it clear that our goals for 2020 were made 3 years ago as part of a 3-year implementation. So those targets have already been set, and it was very easy to calculate what those targets are because I was able to see them in the 3-year plan that was available here in the district. First, focusing on our youngest learners, noting that all students need to be ready for kindergarten. They need to have those basic concepts in place so that they can be very successful in that explosive learning time that kindergarten represents. Last year, we assessed our students using the Ames web as a letter naming and letter fluency assessment. That is an assessment where the children, each child is met with one-on-one. They are given the idea of the letters, and then they get to point to and name those letters. We do that for them in the fall to see how well they did when they were coming in, and hopefully looking at what that looks like for all of our students. If those students are scoring in the 80th percentile or 80th percent or above, they are absolutely ready for kindergarten. They may not read yet, that's not required for kindergarten, but they do have those basic concepts for literacy achievement. Also to note that this is not the only indicator for kindergarten readiness. This is simply a pre-literacy indicator. There are many other indicators regarding mathematical thinking, language concepts, social-emotional learning, relationships, self-regulation, and all of those are taken into account when we do our assessments in our pre-K. And because they use a comprehensive whole assessment for children, for World's Best Workforce, we have selected one of those indicators. So knowing that this doesn't represent the whole child. So when we looked at our children in the fall of 2017-18, 38% of our students were able to hit that benchmark for letter naming and letter fluency. In 2018-19, last fall, not this year, last fall, that number grew to 43.5% on that. So there was an increase as well. We continue to look at that data and partner with our pre-K colleagues to indicate the impact that the pre-K curriculum and VPK training, schooling can have to improve our students. Then in the fall of 2018, we had 49.8% of our students. And so that was very exciting for us to see that increase. Our goal for 2019 this year, and we'll be looking at all of the data, we have shifted the instrument that we use, but we are still using letter naming, letter fluency, and our goal is 59%. We also have a goal for kindergarten readiness in achievement and integration, kind of keeping those aligned. The purpose of the Achievement Integration Plan is to take one step further. It is focused on reducing racial and economic disparities. And so all of the goals take one step, drill down into the World's Best Workforce goal. World's Best Workforce really is addressing all students. The Achievement Integration asks us to do a little bit deeper dive and look at those economic and racial disparities. So the goal for achievement integration was looking at our racially and economically diverse incoming kindergartners and what did their scores look like. And I will say that the scores are equal for that as well. We said the same results for those students, so there really wasn't a gap when they were that young for our preschools coming in. So it looked good. But when we broke it down and looked at specific groups, this was the difference that we had. When we looked at our free and reduced lunch, we did have a disparity. We wanted to increase the results to 37% from 30% the prior year. We ended up with 34%. So it was an increase, but not quite reaching our goal. The percentage of American Indian students, and I just want to draw attention to the fact that that is a very small number. But looking at that, we were looking at 5 students, 4 or 5 students, and we had 0% the prior year, and this year we had 25%. So it's still not showing tremendous progress, and the N number is so small that it's really difficult sometimes to judge that. The percentage of our Latinx students who met and exceeded the benchmark for AIMSweb, we wanted to increase from the prior year's 15% to 17%. We didn't get a tremendous increase, not substantial, but we did hit our goal and exceed that by 18%. So we'll continue to set higher goals as we write our new integration plan this year. Some of the strategies that we've been using, we're using more increased screening efforts, looking at that VPK and more ways to have our families of experience preschool, and including those preschools at the elementary sites, showing so that they can be connected to that kindergarten. We will also be moving forward with our pre-K through 3rd grade alignment, and we feel as though this is going to be a very important piece, making sure that those there's a clear connection between what kindergarten teachers are expecting and seeing as success, aligned with the structures of the VPK curriculum. We do specific letter naming lessons for kindergarten, and that's really that target to make sure that all students at least have those preliminary concepts for letter naming. We looked at the next one, which is all students reading proficient by grade 3. The percentage of all of our grade 3 students demonstrating proficiency on the MCA in the spring, we wanted that to increase from 48%, 49% to 52%, 53% in the spring of 2019. Our results were not, and I know we discussed this before, it was 44.2% of our grade 3 students. We did not meet our goal for that particular one. The goal for 1920 is quite a stretch goal. It's quite ambitious, but it is 65.8% of our students being able to read proficiently by the end of grade 3. I've included some charts here to show the breakdown for that by ethnicity and by special population groups, just so that you can see there are some groups that are showing a significant dip, that would be our Asian students. We are seeing some growth with our Black students, African American students, and we really are looking at a very low bar, our low achievement rate for our Latinx students. And those are target areas that we'll continue to work with. Our free and reduced lunch and our EL populations continue to have a gap when considering all students, and that's an important place to look at. We're hoping that our newcomer curriculum will be one of those strategies that will help increase our goals for those. Special education isn't included here, neither American Indians. The note there is that those groups were too small to report. So when they are very small, it's inappropriate to share that for data privacy. The achievement integration, looked at that as well. The American Indian group was 5, so I wanted to make that clear, and for the entire grade, and so that was 20%. Free and reduced lunch result was just slightly below the target. For our Latinx population, we did see that small increase. And Black students, again, didn't hit our target, but we did increase from the prior year. So there are some high points and some points of challenge. All students reading proficient by grade 3, we really are focused on our multi-tiered systems of report and our implementation of the win time and the redirection of staffing to structured interventions. We used evidence-based interventions for phonics and for comprehension. The staff professional development, last year they really did focus on defining those MTSS strategies. MTSS stands for multi-tiered systems of support, and looking at the screening and progress monitoring. And those were 2 really big pieces because they allow for the early intervention. And we also did last year the implementation of making meaning curriculum. The next goal for World's Best Workforce is closing the achievement gap. The goal for the district was to reduce that gap by 3.3% annually over the last 3 years. That would put us at a target of 22.9 in the spring of 2019. In the spring of 2019, we reduced the gap to 27.3%. So we did not hit our target, even though we did see a small reduction. Our goal for 1920 is 18.5%. Again, a challenging goal and one that we need to address. World's Best Workforce, I think looking at the gap between the students of color and our white students. You see in 2017 it was 29%, in 2018 it was 27.3, and in 2019 it was 27.2, so plateaued a little bit there. World's Best Workforce, we had the other goal was looking at those same gaps in reading. Our goal was to reach 28.7. The results from last year were 31.4%. Our goal is 22.8 for next year. When we look at the change in those gaps, we see 33 in 2017, 34 in 2018, so the gap really did spread, and the gap in 2019 was 31. I don't want to celebrate too much that reduction in that gap because it was really looking at the students who are non-free and reduced lunch dipping in performance, so we didn't change the gap by increasing for everyone. Our students stayed pretty steady, and our majority group decreased, and so that's not how you're supposed to do the achievement gap. Some of the things that we did use, we were implementing the multi-tiered systems of support. We looked at embedding those things into the school improvement plans along with the CPSS, our culturally proficient school systems, professional development. We talked a lot about doing our technology integration with the digital learning specialist as well, and we did implement the embedded social and emotional curriculum in our literacy time. For our college and career ready, making sure all students were college and career ready, we used the indicator of the ACT. We had a mean composite score of 20.3 in the prior year. Last year, we had the mean composite average of 20.9. That doesn't seem like a tremendous amount of growth, but it does hit our 2020 target from the prior year. So that target still sits there. However, we are looking at how far are we going to exceed that target? Recognizing that all of our 11th graders take the ACT, not just a select group, and that the scores are really a good representation. The achievement integration asks us to look at the disparities. So the mean composite ACT score for our students enrolled in Avid. Avid is the program that we use to support our learners. It is representative of our school demographics, and we provide college readiness skills for those students. And when we look at their ACT scores, we would like to see them increase 5 points each year. In 2016 to 2020, we're looking at a score of 21.3 as their average. The mean composite score for our Avid students in 18-19 was 18.5. 18.5 with an well, it should say 5. Sorry, that's a typo. But it, no, increased to 18.5. But for 18-19, it really was 19.1. So it increased, I think it was supposed to say 18.1 to 19.1. So the Avid students are securing higher ACT scores. They continue to grow with that preparation. Things that we're doing, we're offering those advanced placement courses. We did counselor training last year, making sure that the courses we were providing to students had that full range of college readiness. We implemented Blaze Time at our middle schools to do some enrichment and intervention, and we did a realignment of our English language arts curriculum as well. The World's Best Workforce also asks us to look at all students graduate. The 4-year graduation rate for Burnsville high school students was to increase from 1.5% from 85.5 in 2016 to 87 in 2017. The results were in 17-18 was 85.3, so we did not hit our target of 87%. Our 2020 goal is 90%. This is what it looks like in comparison to the between the two high schools, knowing that Burnsville Alternative High School, and I know I've shared this with the board before, is looking at students who enter that school who are behind and deficient in credits, working at individual rate. They have a lot of personalized learning opportunities. Their 4-year graduation rate is quite low, but their 5- and 7-year graduation rate is very high. This is what it looks like with a breakdown by ethnicity and by special populations. When you see that our free and reduced lunch, while below the average for the whole group, continues to make progress. Our special ed saw tremendous growth this year in their rates of graduation, as did our EL learners. And so those are some things to really celebrate and know that while there is still a gap, we are seeing improvement for those groups. We saw a decline with our Asian students. Black students remained quite flat, and our Hispanic students continue to have the largest gap with our white students overall. The Achievement Integration Plan asks us to look at those disparities. And the first group that was targeted was our Latinx students, hoping to increase that graduation rate to 65.5%. We only reached the target of 56.7%. The goal for 2019 is 72%. Challenging. The 4-year graduation rate for black students was to increase from 72 to 74. We resulted in 71.5, which is a decline, and did not see any significant growth for them. Our goal for 2019 is 77%. Some strategies that we used were really making sure that our counselors were working diligently on those college and career counseling with those students. We looked at pathway development for students and making those connections between all of their courses and their pathway of choice. We used North Star and data analysis. North Star is really looking at the accountability data, and it allows us to look at growth and changes for students overall to help us target some specific strategies that might be working. And our high schools are part of the support from the Centers of Excellence working on their improvement plans this year. So it will be good to see if they have made any significant growth as they implement those and work with those consultants. Our achievement integration supports our students in multiple ways. One is that we support them with the AVID program, including the 8th to 9th transition through the AVID Bridge. We use those funds to support students attending college fairs. We're doing extensive professional development this year, in addition to what we did with AVID elective teachers last year. We provide tutors in those AVID classrooms, and it also supports the coordinators who are working and doing case management for students as they move to graduation. We continued our cultural proficiency training through the support of achievement integration. We support our cultural liaisons and provide interpretation services through this. We were doing, last year we did a couple of classes of parent education through the FIRE program, which supports a lot of our Latino families in supporting their children for graduation. We also support with providing social workers to connect families and students to resources that can help address some external needs so that they can focus on their pathways. And we also looked at last year being the first year of putting together the Amplify 191 plan to support our staff of color. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll open it for questions and comments. Board members. Dr. Schatz.
Stretch goals, indeed.
They
yes. Yeah. So I'm assuming that the slides then were that you had listed the strategies. Those are the tools in order to reach the stretch goals.
Those were the strategies that we used last year.
Okay.
This year, we are looking at a couple of different things. We did AVID school-wide professional development for all students, not just the AVID elective students, so all staff will have those strategies at their hands. We structured our new assessment for identifying progress monitoring for our students. All of our students are doing weekly progress monitoring if they are not reading at grade level in grades K through 5. We're using some very aligned interventions, and that's a great online tool for our teachers to pull those interventions that match exactly to the students. And so the system that we put together with the fast assessments not only does the assessment for the students, but it puts together a personalized plan based on their strengths and weaknesses in that assessment. So the teachers can group students who have like needs and then can do those small group interventions. Once a student has been successful in that, we look at what other kinds of needs they may have, and then they are probably grouped and regrouped to do the next intervention. We also this year, under Bethany's direction, are doing a model we call burst of service, and that's when we have classrooms that are experiencing high percentages of students with the same kind of deficiency showing up. We go in with that burst of service for 10 to 15 minutes a day for an extended time, for 3 weeks perhaps, and deliver that intervention to the entire class. And that's a research-based strategy out of the University of Minnesota, and it has really great success, not only for the students who are struggling to reach that benchmark, but the students who have reached that benchmark through the work of the class-wide intervention also increase. So we see a lot of value with that. And so Bethany is working with principals who have classrooms that meet that profile and delivering that burst of service for students, in addition to their core instruction and in addition to their 30-minute intervention.
So that's for the third elementary, essentially, right?
Yes.
Is that, and so another stretch goal certainly was the graduation rate. That was a big jump for that as well.
And those both the high schools are working on that very specific plan. They were identified through the systems accountability process from the state of Minnesota, based on their graduation data of not meeting the state requirements or goals for graduation. And so they have been provided, this is the second year they have been provided with a consultant. Last year was a planning year. This year is their implementation. That consultant meets with them on a regular basis and talks through the strategies that they've identified. The high school, they're really looking at the early intervention data that they receive to be able to target students even earlier for support in meeting their college and career readiness goals. We're also working very closely with our PBIS and our social workers to really help provide the students with and families with the outside resources, so that when they are struggling with finances or housing or mental health or physical health, that they're able to be connected with resources, and that can a lot of times help mitigate some of the distraction. It can help support better attendance and better focus when the students are in the classrooms. And so I think the social worker, working with them more specifically on targeting that, this year we are working with a Native American tutor to focus on our Native American students at the high school to provide additional support in academics for that particular group. And it's a very long list of things, but I think as we look at our achievement integration plan, looking at what the work that the cultural liaisons are doing, we had one graduating class so far of our fire, and that was almost exclusively all Latino families, looking at how do they support their children all the way through graduation.
Excellent. Well, I love big goals, and so it sounds like you certainly have some of the tools to back them up. So.
Certainly inherited some very challenging goals, but I think there's some really great teamwork going on and some nice pieces that we can continue to stretch with.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to next year's report when you shoot even higher. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Director Courier.
Yes, thank you. I just want to caution our audience that one of the hazards of using MCA data is that it's not the same students we're looking at.
That's correct.
It's not longitudinal. It's a different group of youngsters that we're looking at. So it isn't the same.
Nope.
So the group could be completely different. So that's the hazards of using MCA data. So we could have an extraordinary group and teachers doing wonderful things. Well, teachers do wonderful things anyway, but the group could be totally different. And so the data would be different, so.
And I really appreciate you sharing that and pointing that out. One of the advantages of the North Star reports is looking at where the pockets of growth are. And the new reports that came this year, MDE is providing us with individualized goals for EL students and target goals for every student on the MCA. So we know how much that student needs to increase in the number of points that they achieve. So they are addressing the need for organizations to look at their students in terms of growth in a more personalized way. And we haven't had that in the past, and so that's a real benefit.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Courier. Any other comments? Or Director Miller?
Yeah, thank you again for, there's a lot in this report to unpack, obviously, but I do, to expand on what Director Courier was saying, there are just a few measures in here that we're looking at, and,
Yes.
and I think it's important to note that there are many, many measures of success in a district of our size, and these are just a handful. In fact, so the third grade reading, those would be the kids that are fourth grade this year, right?
That's correct.
And I was just trying to go back to the demographic study we had recently. Though I believe that well, I know the ones that are third grade this year, and I think the ones that are fourth grade is a very small, comparatively small class. So that might have had some impact on the data set also. So anyway, but again, just caution, note of caution. MCAs and especially graduation rates, there's papers written about the problems with those data sets, so.
And the other piece with MCA data really is that they are an efficient tool to look at systems accountability. They are not an efficient tool to look at individual student needs, and that is one of the reasons why we look at other local measures, making sure that we can look at data that really helps us plan instruction and support for students as well as enrichment for them. So we do have other measures in the district. We also need to know that students are more than math and reading, and that there are many other measures that measure student success, and some of them are about attendance and engagement. Some of them are about their participation in enrichment activities, and really looking at that holistic view of how they are performing with their specialists and some of those other opportunities that are provided in our schools.
Thank you. Thanks. Any other comments or questions? Director Chester.
So going with the graduation rates, I know that we have an emphasis on four-year graduation rate, but I think just even if the student needs extra time to graduate, you noted in the alternative high school that the graduation rates at 5 and 6 years are much high, are high for graduation rates. And so just having a student graduate and get their diploma, even regardless of the 4 years, is a marketed achievement. And I'd really be interested to kind of see what that percentage at 5 and 6 out of the alternative high school would be at some point in time. And then also interested in the students, because I think you said that we had a graduation rate of 85% out of Burnsville High School, and wondering of the 15% that didn't make it at 4 years, how many went on to the alternative high school and then finished in 5 and 6? Because I think that cumulatively demonstrates a success rate in terms of student achieving that high school diploma.
And I think I shared that information with you at our college and career report. Almost all of them, I think we only have probably 5% of students that are unaccounted for. Those students who don't graduate, all the rest of them are identified as continuing on, whether they're continuing on in our alternative high school or in some other alternative high school or high school in the state. So I think really saying, yep, 4-year graduation rates are really terrific and match the needs of many students, but giving students a more personalized timeline oftentimes can be very helpful, especially for students who may have struggled early in their high school career. And it's hard to catch up a whole year of, difficult circumstances, whatever they may be, and providing that kind of personalized attention that they can get at the alternative high school is really necessary. I'm really proud of the alternative high school, too, for not just helping students graduate from high school, but also embracing the AVID college and career readiness and offering college in the school courses there as well. So those students not just graduating, but graduating with a look forward to their college and career options.
Definitely something to celebrate. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I had a couple. First, really thrilled to hear about the pre-K, K alignment, working on that with Fidelity. We've been talking about it for some time, and I know that it's been in process, and so really appreciate hearing that coming forward. One thing that I would be interested, you mentioned the other indicators, and you've only presented, one. It might be interesting for us to see what those other, the results for those other indicators are, because, as you point out, a student is more than just math and reading. And I know this board appreciates, the whole child approach as well. So that might be interesting to share with us.
This year, with much support and accolades to our early childhood folks, Cindy Check and Jack Lee Smith, working with us on the pre-K to 3 alignment grant from MDE. And part of it will be looking at their measurement instrument of TS Gold, Teaching Strategies Gold, which is a research-based instrument as well. It does a more portfolio work collection, observation method, and hitting all of those domains, making sure that students are working along those domains developmentally. And that's part of the exciting work of matching that up with our kindergarten folks and really taking some time to do that. So
That's great.
I appreciate their work.
And then one comment. Where can I find it? Oh, the gap. Students of color, you had attributed it to a decrease of the gap, but that again was another example of not the right kind of gap closure.
That is correct.
Right. So we're going to look forward to having different results next year.
Yep.
And then there still is an ANI plan or report.
Yes,
That you.
this is the final year of our 3-year plan, so we'll finish it out this year, and I'll be bringing to you after the first of the year the next 3-year plan
Got it. Okay.
for 21.
Great. Thank you. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next, we're staying with Amina, and we are receiving a report on Pathways K-12, and being joined by Bethany. Welcome.
I don't know where the next presentation is. There we go. All right. So, Chair Alt, members of the board, Superintendent Battle, I would like to share the introduction with my elementary curriculum coordinator.
Bethany Van Osdell, Elementary Coordinator of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
And we are just really thrilled to bring this follow-up report to you. At the last time we shared this with you, we had a rough idea, perhaps the nugget of an idea. We have really taken some time to put a little bit more meat on that and to think about what that's going to look like in terms of implementation. So we start again with change comes opportunity. And gives us this opportunity to reimagine our elementary programming. Going back to the roadmap, thinking about rigorous personalized learning, thinking about relevant and engaging instruction and enrichment, and I really want to highlight the idea of enrichment. Thinking about how do we innovate, make ourselves attractive, and align our academic program pre-K through 12. Again, we come back to why. Why would we want to create a pathway school? Knowing that we really want to take that framework of equity and access for exceptional programming for all students, regardless of what neighborhood in which they live, that all programming would be available to any student. We look at our rigor, maintaining those high expectations for all students, and really laying out a program that asks them to perform at those levels and supporting them to get there. The alignment, there is a real powerful thought when you think about those pre-K students. They're 3- and 4-year-olds at pre-K, knowing that there is a pathway clear for them to be successful graduates and be set up upon the world in order to make their choices about what they want to be when they grow up. So some of us don't decide for a long time. What are we going to do about that? How do we do that? First of all, we need to make a commitment to support our advanced learners. We need to make sure that our advanced learners, regardless of what school in which they attend, have the opportunity to have direct services. Our advanced learners include those high potential students as well as our gifted and talented students. Align with high school pathways, making sure that our programming has a clear connection from pre-K playstations that represent the doctor's office and things related to personal health, all the way to students earning their CNA certificate by the time they leave high school. So there's a connection there. I heard loud and clear in all of the parent in community meetings that we had that there really was a deep felt with our staff and with our families for some of the lost programming and services that has happened because of the budget reductions, and thinking about what are the avenues, the opportunities with the consolidation of schools that we could really leverage to gain some of those back. Utilizing our assets to innovate. There are so many things that are already in our system. There's so many unique and outstanding pieces of programming that we just need to remember how do we enhance those, strengthen those, and make them part of that K-12 alignment.
So I appreciate very much being invited to this conversation this evening. It goes without saying we're in a heavy season in our district, and what I really hope that this proposal and this presentation can do is to inspire us to consider maybe shifting our narrative tonight from the possibility of closing 2 buildings at elementary to the possibility of opening 8, and how we might reimagine what that could look like as we are facing some possible facilities realignments, consolidations. How could we lean into that and look at that as an opportunity to create innovative schools programming that mimics and mirrors what we've already done at the high school? And so when I think about what this does for our elementaries, Amina talked about the pathways that we have at the high school, which, as we all know, we've received national recognition for these pathways. We have people coming from all over the country to visit these pathways and to see what our high schoolers are doing in terms of these career trajectories. And so when we consider this for our youngest kids, we're not necessarily thinking about getting them in a career path at this point, but rather thinking about how we can give them opportunities to glimpse possibilities. And so most of you know that, well, I've been a coordinator in this district for going into 6 years now. I also am a parent of a first grader and a 3-year-old who goes downstairs, who attend in the district. And so I am frequently putting on my parent hat when I think about this, and I think about what I really hope and dream for my child, and that's to have a school setting that helps him uncover his potential and helps him find his path. And while I would like to be able to direct that, I'm learning quickly that I don't have much say in that. And his teachers have a lot more influence than I do. When he comes home, he's often talking about what he did with Mr. Giesman in music, or what he's learning with Mr. Risto in digital learning. And while, yes, we're talking about reading and math, you mentioned it before, our kids are more than readers and mathematicians. They're musicians. They are little IT people learning about coding. It blows my mind. And to this slide, we really want them to be given these opportunities and exposure starting in pre-K so that they can start dreaming big about where they may end up. So I mentioned our pathways at the high school, and this isn't new for any of us, right? We know that those of us that have been around a while know that these pathways are a series of classes that kids can get into in the 9th grade, more solidly maybe in the 11th grade, where they can graduate from high school with a certificate that can allow them to be more marketable for their next steps. We think about those high schoolers kind of reaching their arms up to touch their future. Well, for our little ones, when they reach their arms up, they touch middle school, they touch high school. So we want them to start thinking about those opportunities that might be there for them in these pathways. So what we did was we took the graphic that we have for the high school pathways and we removed all of the classes and we started thinking about what this might look like at elementary. So you're going to notice that there's going to be the same icons in the center circle, but that the terminology of the pathways is tweaked just a little bit to make it more elementary-like. And so we have a health, well-being, and social-emotional learning pathway. We have a visual and performing arts, which also includes communication, and that includes our literacy pathway. A math, design, and engineering pathway, and then an entrepreneurship pathway. And what I love about starting to imagine these, Amina has been an amazing thought partner, and we've been bouncing ideas in my team that I get to work with. And once you start putting on this lens of pathways for our elementary kids, it's amazing what comes to light that we're already doing. We already have a really strong social-emotional component to our literacy program. We really have amazing music programs and amazing experts in our music and arts departments. We have a great literacy program. In math, design, and engineering, we have pretty incredible maker spaces. What we want to start thinking about now as we move into the possibility of opening 8 buildings with new staff, new students, and new families is, how do we enhance this? How do we make this even stronger for our kids and our students, our staff and families? Entrepreneurship is one that is exciting to think about. Our kids are already doing this. They're already setting up lemonade stands. They're already thinking about goals that they want to crush. They're already thinking about those. How do we now provide them maybe books in their classroom libraries that they can read more about already kid entrepreneurs? So the other story to this that I want to highlight is we've used our curriculum review process, and we've shared that with you a lot, where it's a process of bringing teachers to the table to help make decisions and build programs and recommend change. And it's been tried and true with our literacy program, where we have representatives, typically 2 from each building, along with the support staff, so that we have all the lenses that we need to go through a process that looks at what do we currently have, what does research say we should have, and what do we need to get there. And so with that process that's been tried and true that really allows our teachers to be at the heart of these programs, this is what we want to do with this idea. We want steering committees to be, to represent each pathway, so that our health, well-being, and social-emotional learning pathway would have a steering committee that would allow this to be built from the ground up with the people that do it better than anyone else, and that's our teachers. And so when we think about the beauty of this is also we've got people that haven't been a part of that yet because they're not necessarily part of specific literacy work in terms of teaching the classroom core literacy. Our art teachers, our digital learning specialists, our Phi-Ed teachers, it's now their turn to come in and help us build this and highlight these programs even more. And I've heard that they are more than excited to get involved and start bringing their expertise into these decision recommendations. The steering is a recommendation committee. So,
With that, I provide you with kind of a visual representation of what our pathway schools will look like for pre-K through 12. Each of the 4 pathways you can see on the far end under high school is listed there. And what we have done is really look at what that might look like at each of those grades. Whether we've got math, number sense, and puzzle and building stations in our pre-K and kindergarten. It may look like health career visits or project-based learning for our intermediate students, all the way through to middle school. While this presentation is really focused on our elementaries, there's a whole connection there and a design for our middle school as well. Really taking students through all of those pieces. What we have here are a broad brush, and as Bethany has shared, really looking at what that might look like from the teachers who are required to put it together. We're talking about moving them on that bottom graphic, moving them from awareness. Are we using that academic language for health, for entrepreneurship, for coding and engineering? Are we using that language and helping kids be aware of it? To exploration, are we giving kids a chance to play with things, to try out some different pieces? To exploration and experiences. So by the time the students are in 5 through 8, they are having some real classroom experiences that allow them to touch those things. So that when they're making some choices from 8th grade to 9th grade, they have the language, they have the concepts, they have the experience, and are able to better refine their choices in their exploration. And then if they choose to engage fully, they will select a pathway and complete the coursework to do that and earn that certificate. Looking at supporting our advanced learners in very different, innovative ways, looking at our identification process beginning in 2nd grade to really do some direct service to students in kind of a rotating manner based on themes and interests. Looking at our AVID program in our middle and high school and thinking about that college and career concepts, language, and readiness skills to be successful in school in our intermediate grades as well. This is a lot of stuff on the plate. There's a lot of things here. We can't do all of these things at once. This is really kind of a gradual release over the next 3 years. It's also important to note that while we have some of these things in place, we have reduced some of the services and some of the resources for those. In order to move through a 3-year timeline, we are looking at how do we utilize some of the resources and the savings that we will get from if you decide to move forward with the school consolidations. Being able to serve 2 middle schools allows us to think about doing an orchestra and band equally in each of those 2 middle schools. If there are 3, that will be really impossible to maintain. If we are looking at 8 sites, we know that we'll get savings and reductions in staff travel time being reduced, being able to reinstate some of the support for makerspaces, looking at alternative funding and seeing if we can find those sustainable pieces that can support our AVID in our middle schools already. Can that be extended to 8 elementary schools? Having 10 elementary schools, while that doesn't seem like a big piece, kind of moves us into a higher cost differential. And so there are some things that we'll really be able to do with the economy of 8 schools and 2 middle schools that we wouldn't be able to do, that we're not able to do right now. So there are some really key pieces here. There is a timeline that I've proposed. In the first year of transition, we're really looking at the advanced learning specialist at each site. This is the big ask in terms of savings and monetary. Advanced learning specialist, we know is going to be more of a cost, and it's just depending on whether or not we will have enough of a savings to invest in those learning specialists for every student in every elementary school. Band and orchestra round robin experiences. Again, we can use some of the savings and resources that we have in place, but the consolidation of being able to make that happen in 8 schools is much more possible during the regular school year. The digital learning specialist, really, that's one of those pieces that no matter what, we'll be able to do that. We have those resources, we have that staff, and we have some development monies that we can use for that particular group. However, the staffing to support those maker spaces and to integrate those into the classrooms, that again is dependent on us capturing some of that FTE back. And then we'll move forward with our math curriculum pilot. We already have done phases 1 and 2. Bethany has led those folks through that, and now she's ready to lead them through phase 3. Year 2, we would look at theater performing arts using an artist in residence model, looking at partnering with other organizations to do health and well-being career activities, looking at developing project-based learning and entrepreneurship, understanding that the children who are in our elementary schools are living in an economy that is entrepreneurial. That will have been always in their lives. And so with globalization, with technology, being an entrepreneur, whether it's for profit or for passion for a nonprofit or a foundational interest that they have, that is very possible for them. And we want to give them the language and the skills to be able to do that. And then we'll move on to the full implementation of the math curriculum. In year 3, we will implement those project-based learning opportunities for students, looking at our K-5 math curriculum implementation for the second year, and if we still have the appropriate funding, we'll begin the phase 1 for our next generation science standards, which will then be able to support all of the STEM activities that we're doing, because the new science standards are very inquiry-based and inquiry learning, and so that will give us a really nice companion to the digital learning pieces that we're doing already. And finally, in year 3, being able to take a look at our Avid Elementary and making some plans of how that might be implemented and supporting our students in our intermediate grades. All of these things are very powerful, small bits that are building on the foundation of excellent programming that we already have. I think it is really important for us to also then say, we have pathway schools. These are schools in which we have clearly articulated the pathway and matriculation to those high school, college, and career. That also helps us push and support high expectations for all of our students, and really build that rigor for students because they have that destination in mind. Moving forward, we have spent some time collecting feedback from teachers and principals. I have used every single teacher group that I can possibly find. If they're meeting here, I probably have interrupted their meeting and shared this with them. And then Bethany has created an opportunity for them to provide feedback to us. And if she would just take just a minute to just share what the responses have been.
So we have been meeting with groups throughout, and this slide did not get in the slide deck because we just finished meeting with a group this afternoon. So we have been meeting with building leadership teams, digital learning specialists, steering committees, blended learning cohorts, learning specialists, and we have presented this to them, and overall, the feedback is extremely positive. So they've responded to 3 large questions that I believe the pathways presented would enhance current programming at the elementary level. To that, 93% of our 54 responders responded favorably to that. So 93% are in favor. At first glance, I'm energized by that. The idea of the proposal of the pathways, 87% of people responded favorably. And I believe the pathways would energize students and families. 96% of people that have heard this proposal in the last 2 weeks responded favorably to that. And really quickly, I think just a couple of comments that pop out. One teacher said the pathways at elementary school would provide incredible opportunities to tap into students' strengths. We would be on the cutting edge of innovation, and this would be a way to embed lifelong skills into our school day. Another teacher said, I think this is an exciting opportunity for our families to be part of a cohesive program across all grade levels that will prepare our students to be future ready. It's a comprehensive approach that addresses the whole child. And a third teacher that I thought I would highlight is, I see the pathways as an opportunity for students to be celebrated for their unique strengths and talents. I also think a program like this would energize staff.
With that positive feedback, and we've made some tweaks and changes along the way, that does give us a really good foundation to share with you, and then to go forward and share with all staff in the district. And then the next piece will really be looking at how do we refine that with feedback from our families. And so giving opportunities for them to weigh in about what kinds of things do they think are high priorities. The timeline is a proposed timeline. If different priorities pop up, then we can adjust pieces in the timeline. We are working very closely together with our finance department to think about what our 3-year budget would look like for this implementation, along with a sustainability plan. It is my intention that these things become our core pathway schools, and that none of these pieces end up on the fringe to concerns about budget cuts, that people can say, yep, this is our pathway pieces, and this is how we're going to sustain them. And then putting together the steering groups for planning and implementation. So those are our next steps. I think it is really important for you to know that we believe in this plan. We think it is the best organization and strengths for our students to really support our work with equity and access. If we don't see the savings from the school consolidations, we will move forward with this plan. It will not be able to be completed in 3 years. It will take much longer, and we will do one small piece at a time, but we will get there, and we will do what is best for our students. The 3-year budget is very much predicated on the idea that there will be some savings through the school consolidations. So we're trying to be that silver lining in what we know can be a difficult time. So with that, I want to leave you with that graphic in mind, knowing that the pathways radiate from the high school, across the middle school, and into our elementaries and our pre-K. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Questions or comments from board members? Director Schatz.
Okay, I said it last time and I'll say it again. I love this idea. And I guess I want to, so thank you for this and for your work on it. I'm not surprised by the feedback that you got from the teachers about how exciting this is. I'm sure they see the potential and the excitement around this. I mean, that's the kind of learning that students learn best, is that type of project-based and experiential learning. And I guess I also want to say that this is a great example of the reason why this is such a great district, this kind of thinking for how we serve our students, how we develop curriculum, how we best help each of our students become ready for whatever it is that follows them, not only after high school, but throughout their educational career in the district. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Director Schatz. Comments from this side? Director Hume.
At the risk of being repetitive,
Yes, please.
I think this is fantastic. I think it's really exciting potential, exciting opportunities. I thought it was probably intentional on your part that your previous presentation, you talked about how students are so much more than mathematicians and readers, and here you are talking about the other things that, I'm sure that was your plan, right? That the other things that are also so important to our students' education. So thank you for all the work that's been done up to this point. I think it's fantastic to potentially be giving them, all students in the district, not just the ones who can maybe afford it, the opportunities to maybe have some experiences they wouldn't otherwise be able to have. So I get one question I have, and it may be premature, but what was it, round robin experiences for band and orchestra. Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea what that looks like? As a band parent, I'm trying to picture what round robin band and orchestra might look like.
I have an idea, but I'm not an expert in music, and so it would have to be fleshed out. But one of the concepts that I have is that we have the asset of lots of instruments. We don't have instruments so that we could have a full band program in every single elementary or an orchestra in every single elementary, but we do have enough instruments that we could have students do a 3 or 4 week opportunity to touch, experience both orchestra stringed instruments and band instruments. So 3 or 4 weeks with band instruments, 3 or 4 weeks with stringed instruments. Have them participate in the concerts, different kinds of road shows, so that when they do come to that point, they won't have had a whole year of band, but every single student, regardless of what elementary school they are in, at that time will know more about their choices with stringed and band instruments. And then we would also, through the funding, be able to pay to have someone come and fit all of those students in the spring for instruments that they may have chosen. And then it won't matter which middle school they go to, both middle schools will have the opportunity for them to do orchestra or band and to see those programs grow. So it's no longer about, if I could just variance into that school, I could have orchestra. It is now every student will have those experiences. And to have that during their classroom music time, so it's not taking away from any other times that they have, and doing that in conjunction with the classroom teacher. So to have that round robin person who's tooling around and we just ship the instruments from one building to the next.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds similar to the chess residency tradition that we have here.
Yes.
With all fourth graders having that opportunity. Other questions or comments? Director Miller? Or Dr. Chester? Sure. Dr. Chester.
Thank you. Just for clarification, especially for our audience, and then also just for me too, is with our current model of our elementary schools, we have some that are sort of have a magnet theme. The idea now is moving to pathways in terms of all four pathways, all four experiences are in every single elementary school. So no matter what elementary school you're in, you're going to be having that same experience with pathways.
Yes, the intention is that every single one of our schools will offer these different types of experiences for students. That's why the round robin would go to every single one of the schools.
And the artists in residence?
Artists in residence would go to every single school. The entrepreneur interdisciplinary units would happen in every single school. Advanced learning specialists in every single school. So I don't need a variance into another school. I have all of those opportunities. If I variance into another school, I have those same opportunities there as well. And I think when we look at reimagining those 8 schools that are going to open up, we want them to open up with those strong structures in place so that every student has that equitable access to that high rigorous and whole child experiences.
I have a follow up with that because, it's thinking money too
Yes.
and everything that's going on. I know that in the workshop that you kind of introduced this to prior to this presentation, you had noted ways to fund it. So even outside of what may or may not be a savings with the consolidation, what are some of the funding opportunities for this?
So looking at achievement integration as we are putting forward our next 3-year plan to incorporate into year 3 the exploration for elementary AVID, because achievement integration is already supporting that. Looking at the Title IV dollars, which now will be reoccurring funding to support the music fitting for the instruments and support the curriculum development for all of that, as well as supporting some of the costs for the artists in residence for the performing arts in year 2. It will also, Title IV will also help support our students with professional development and resources that can be purchased for the advanced learning specialist to use, and also for supplies that maybe are outside of the budget of technology for the maker spaces. So there's a lot of pieces along that way. Our professional development and our steering committee work can be funded through Title II. Digital learning specialist work can be funded out of the technology levy. So I think there are some very different ways that we can be creative with the funding that we have available. And if we can pair that and braid that with savings that come or opportunities that come from the consolidation, we will have plenty to go forward. And I think making sure that that is a sustainable model as well.
Any other questions or comments? Director Miller.
Well, thank you. This is fantastic. I think you guys used the rest of the superlatives up, so. Great. This is so awesome you're doing this, and it's awesome that you're bringing this here tonight. I want to just go back over something that you touched on and hammer on it a bit. This is foundationed off of what's going on at the high school. It's been developed and is in place and is very successful at the high school, the Pathways program. And this is spreading it down into every aspect of our district. And it's in our district. As you alluded to, the Pathways program at the high school has garnished national attention. We've had visitors from other parts of the country come and see what's going on here. And the reason they come here is because it's not at other districts in the Twin Cities around us. And it's not going to be at other elementary schools around us here in the Twin Cities or in districts around us. This is what sets us apart. This coupled with the fact that we have more college and the credits available than any other district around. This is a great example. Thank you. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. I do think that being able to promote us as a district, saying we have these innovative programs and we have this K-12 pathway to a successful graduate, even if you're bringing your 3-year-old to us and letting them go to school downstairs, that we have that vision for your child and that they'll be able to participate in all of those things, from coding to advanced learning specialists to instrumental music, all of those pieces.
Any other comments? Nope. Okay, I had a couple. I concur. I got choked up the first time I heard the presentation. I got choked up again tonight because this is what I have been hoping for all of our kids. And it goes back to Vision 191 and the fact that we started with getting pathways into the high school and then equitable access to great programming in the middle schools. And now we're doing that for our littles. And that just makes me so happy. Everything takes time.
Yes.
And I know I say that way too much, but at the same time, 3 years. And I'm hearing you say you're looking at this being sustainable. And I know I've probed a little bit, in conversation, because this is such a great opportunity to, I love the phrase, opening 8 new schools, because that's what we would be doing, and really getting all of that access and great opportunity for all of our kids in each of our elementaries. It's just great. Not tonight, but another, follow-up question. I believe, unless it's changed, our cultural liaisons and social workers are funded through ANI, and I would be interested in understanding where we're going to land with them, because they do play a very important role, and I know you know that. Partnerships. I hear you saying that we likely will be leveraging community experts in order to do this.
I think there are many opportunities to leverage those community experts, especially if we're doing some artist in residence kinds of pieces.
Great. And I think that does it.
Just as my final conclusion, I want to say how important to equity this is, and I see this as an amazing opportunity to address our achievement gap. Yes, we can address the needs of students through remediation and intervention, but we also need to look at those high rigorous expectations. Students need to see people that look like them, sound like them, or have the same life experiences that they have in these different careers, in these different settings. They need to be able to experiencing them themselves, so that it's not, I'm struggling in reading so I can never participate in the coding activities. Instead, that might be where I truly excel, and then I do know that I can work on my struggling readers. So I just feel like getting these kinds of opportunities in the hands of children very young really does build hope. It helps interrupt the poverty mindset, and it really does give children just that opportunity to see themselves as something besides a struggling reader or a poor math student. And I really believe in the whole child, and I believe this will be one of those things that has an impact on our achievement gap.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Next, we will receive a report from our superintendent, Dr. Battle.
Thank you, Board Chair Alt and members of the board. There were 2 wonderful examples of our students showing character over the past few weeks, and I want to share them with you and our community now. First, as we had our fall break recently, I want to highlight a project sponsored by the Burnsville High School Youth Service Advisory Council. They created a gratitude board at the school, giving students and staff the opportunity to give thanks to anyone or anything. And our communications team took the opportunity to ask a few Burnsville High School students and staff what they are thankful for. So let's take a look now.
Burnsville High School. So I'm thankful for my mom because she's been there for me when I was having a hard time, you know. And I'm just happy because she gave me birth, and I just want to thank her. So I love you, Mom.
I am thankful for all my teachers.
I'm thankful for my friends and my family because I love them so much. We are right
for being here in life.
I'm thankful for my teachers and always supporting me. I'm thankful for my pets.
I'm thankful for my family and friends and my teachers for always helping me. I'm thankful for my family and friends because they're always there supporting me, and also my teachers for always helping me out when I have questions. I'm thankful for my amazing friends and a loving family.
I'm also thankful for my family and my friends and the support of my peers and teachers.
It's so great to hear students express their thanks for the support of their parents, their friends, and their teachers, and their pets. And it's important that our staff and our students hear that they are appreciated. So thank you to Burnsville High School Youth Service Advisory Council for putting the project together. Next, the Harriet Bishop Elementary community, led by the School Service Club, made a statement about their values with the unveiling of a unity mural that depicts a tree with heart-shaped leaves decorated by students. Here are a few pictures for your viewing. Positioned right in the school's entryway, the mural was created in response to an incident of racist graffiti in the neighborhood earlier this fall. It greets students and visitors with the phrase, "Every person welcomed." Every person included. Every person valued. I am so proud of the determination of our students, staff, and community members to speak out against racism and in favor of inclusion. Harriet Bishop truly is community strong. And that ends my superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Our student representative is not here this evening. She had school. Oh, there you are. Come on up. We have a substitute. Welcome.
Yes.
No, right up there.
Yeah. So your peer forgot to tell you.
Welcome. If you would introduce yourself and let us hear your report.
I'm Charlie McKee. I'm just subbing today. Let me pull up the report. Sorry. So today's report is relatively short. I want to highlight something that occurred a few weeks ago. On November 6th, the Student Council and the National Honor Society went to a South Suburban Student Leadership Conference. There we were able to converse with student leaders in other schools and share ideas as well as make connections with other schools. One school that we connected with in particular was Lakeville North High School. We spoke about diversity in our student bodies, which is something that Burnsville thrives in, but their school lacks in. So the Lakeville North students asked us for help in embracing diversity and getting more people of color involved in their student council. We invited them to join us for Snow Week in February, which is a week of winter events that gets students involved in fun school activities at BHS. We wanted them to see how our student council operates and how inclusive we were in our planning so that they can hopefully use what they learned from our school in their activities. That concludes my report.
Great report, and my apologies for not remembering that you were going to be here and not having you sitting up here.
It's okay. I kind of walked in late anyway.
Okay. And you're welcome. You're welcome to stay.
Okay.
Feel free to stay seated. Next, are there any board member reports?
I have a very short one.
Director Hume.
So I missed the Foundation 191 monthly meeting earlier this week because it was the same night as our workshop. but I was asked to remind the board of the upcoming annual gala for Foundation 191. It'll be on Thursday, February 13th at the Environmental Learning Center in Savage, and you can all expect a personal invitation from the Foundation board soon. And that concludes my report.
Fantastic, thank you. Any other board member reports? Director Miller.
The Legislative Committee met on November 19th with Senator Clausen, who, although has a small piece of our district in his district, he's very attached and involved in the educational issues at in St. Paul at the state level. So we had an engaging conversation. I think it was illuminating for him to see what was going on in the district, and it was a very well-received opportunity to open some more doors of conversation. So we continue to meet with in the future here with other representatives in our area.
Great, thank you very much. Any other, let's see, committee reports? Let's go to the Policy Review Committee with Director Courier.
We met this week, and I will give a more complete report at our next meeting.
Sounds great, thank you. Director Schatz, Chair of the Negotiations Committee.
The Negotiations Committee continues to meet with the BEA. We had a meeting last night, as a matter of fact, and we will probably pause now for the winter break and convene again in January.
Great, thank you. Legislative we heard from. The Student Performance and Achievement Committee of the whole has not met, and we will look at our next opportunity to meet in the new year. Next, with any other board appointments or school assignments, are there any reports? No? All right. Next, turning to the business portion of our meeting with the consent agenda. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for separate consideration. Are there any items that board members would like to separate? Hearing none, I will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Director Courier, second. Seconded by Director Miller. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. New business. We will turn to receiving a recommendation from Dr. Battle to approve a facilities recommendation. Dr. Battle.
Chair Alt, Directors of the Board, Student Representative. My administration and I are bringing you a recommendation to adopt the resolutions for the closure of one middle school, John Metcalf, and two elementary schools, M.W. Savage Elementary and Sioux Trail Elementary. I do not relish bringing this recommendation to you. It's not what I want to be doing as an educator and an educational leader. At the same time, as I've said before, this work is essential. I know these changes are about more than bricks and mortar. They are about history, memories, emotion, and relationships too. I also believe that we will come out of this stronger, in a better position to serve our students, and that gives me hope and excitement about the future of 191. District 191 has experienced declining enrollment for about 15 years, losing nearly 2,000 students from its peak. While reconfiguring grade levels and adding pre-kindergarten classes to elementary schools has made use of the space at district schools, a comprehensive facility study completed in June 2019 found that 6 elementary schools and 2 middle schools are underutilized in terms of square feet per student compared to state guidelines. We hired a neutral third-party consultant to assist with the facilitation of the process to gather feedback and make recommendations about facility usage. We engaged our community to make the best decisions for our students and families. More than 400 people participated in person at community focus groups. Another 300 provided input online, and middle and high school students were surveyed. Through this engagement work, the community told us they agree that closing schools is the right step. The recommendations were based on the criteria developed by the consultant and with public input. People who have participated in this process passionately let us know how these changes will impact their families and community, and promise to hold us accountable for our decisions. They also gave us hope when they shared their positive experiences in District 191. Additionally, they offered help by recognizing the difficult decisions before us, offering to walk with us along the way, and sharing their high expectations for the future. I am grateful to students, parents, civic leaders, and community members who provided feedback and advocacy throughout this process. I am appreciative of the 191 staff who have helped us ensure that the process has been transparent, thorough, and kept the best interests of our students at the forefront. One of our 4 strategic directions tells us to close gaps and raise achievement for all students. Our students are focused on their learning. Teachers and other staff are supporting their learning, and our families have high expectations and love and support each learner. We must provide programs and services to support our learners and give our staff the resources they need to increase achievement for all and to close gaps. We are seeing progress with our new literacy program from the collaborative classroom, Making Meaning and Being a Reader curriculums. 9 out of 10 District 191 elementary schools equaled or outperform the state average when it comes to student progress on state reading tests in 2019. And on average, English learners are bilingual and multilingual students at each elementary school showed greater progress toward English proficiency than the state average. We must continue to close the gaps between our white students and our American Indian and students of color. Right now, that gap ranges from 10 to 30 points across our elementary schools. Another strategic direction tells us that we will maximize resources for optimal student learning. Facilities realignment, which includes possible closing of schools and leveraging our assets such as Diamond Head Education Center, Cedar School, and River Ridge, is one part of a comprehensive approach to meeting financial challenges and setting us up for success. These other pieces include the Levy referendum. We cannot thank our community enough for giving us those resources. Another component is financial management. We must continue to right-size our budget to match the enrollment. We must seek alternative funding such as grants, and we must continue to be advocates at the legislature to make sure we receive the funding that each student needs. So we also need to advocate through legislative action. Another piece is to have continued academic and school climate improvements. So that's what this is all about. Making a decision, while difficult, has to forge a new vision for District 191 while addressing our financial situation. with stakeholders' continued support to put us in the best situation to serve students, families, and the community, we will successfully navigate whatever decision the board makes. I do believe District 191 schools and programs will come out stronger for having taken comprehensive action of all the components that I just shared with you. I recognize these changes will cause strong emotions, including sadness and even anger. I want you to know, regardless of what school students attend, they will have teachers and staff who care for them, and that each school will work hard to build community with families. My staff and I will need the resources to support students and families. So members of the board, you have a solemn task in front of you. I believe you have approached it with an open mind, and like our community members, you have asked me and my team challenging and important questions as you try to make the best decision possible. You have also shared that you do not want to mothball any closed schools, but to find ways to repurpose so they are still a strong part of the community. Board members, whatever decisions you make, my team and I will support and implement. With that, my facilities recommendation to you is that the Board of Education adopts the attached resolutions in the board book, closing Metcalf Middle School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Sioux Trail Elementary School.
Thank you, Director Battle. Per statutory requirements, we will have Clerk Schatz read the resolutions. We will start with the resolution to close Metcalf Middle School.
Whereas the notice of public hearing on the question of the necessity and practicability of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School was published in the legal newspaper of the school district for 2 successive weeks on November 22nd and November 29, 2019. And whereas the time and place of the meeting was set forth in the notice, and whereas Metcalf Middle School was identified in the notice as a school considered for closing, and whereas the reasons for the proposed closing were set forth in said notice, and whereas numerous opportunities were provided for members of the community to be heard, whether for or against the question of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School, including at a September 23rd, 2019 design team meeting through a feedback form, community focus group meetings held on October 3rd, October 7th, October 8th, October 9, October 14, and October 15, 2019. Multiple site meetings for staff at each school held between October 1 and October 8, 2019. Multiple site meetings held for middle school and high school students between October 8 and October 18, 2019. An online feedback form active from October 1 through October 20, 2019. And a meeting with Metcalf families on November 18, 2019. And whereas on November 14, 2019, the school board heard a presentation and recommendation presented by consultant Dr. Roger Warner. And whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 123B.51, Subdivision 5, pursuant to said notice by the school board, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota. And whereas the school board has considered the following materials: July 2, 2019, Baker Tilly Organizational Analysis Study, July 8, 2019, presentation of Organizational Analysis Study by Dr. Roger Warner and Dr. Kay Warner. August 8, 2019, review of facilities study and recommendations presentation. September 12, 2019, outline for facilities study process update and facilities review timeline. September 17, 2019, facilities realignment presentation for Dr. Roger Warner. October 10, 2019, facilities realignment process update. October 24, 2019, facilities realignment process update. And the November 24, 2019, memorandum and presentation from Dr. Roger Warner. And whereas testimony and materials were received during the course of the hearing by anyone in favor of or opposed to said closings, and the hearing was not deemed closed until everyone who requested to speak had an opportunity to do so. And whereas the school board has considered the recommendation of the administration to close Sioux Trail Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Metcalf Middle School pursuant to the recommendation of the consultant, Warner. Now, therefore, be resolved that after considering the materials in the record, the testimony presented at said hearing held pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 123B.51, Subdivision 5, and the recommendations of the administration, the School Board of Independent School District Number 191, Burnsville-Egan Savage School District, hereby determines that Metcalf Middle School, located at 2250 Diffley Road, Burnsville, Minnesota, shall be closed effective the end of 2019-20 school year for the following reasons and based on the following findings of fact. 1. In the spring of 2019, the School District commissioned Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, LLC, to perform an organizational analysis study to ascertain the status of the school district and tender conclusions and recommendations for enhancing the effectiveness, efficiency, and cost-effectiveness of the school district. Baker Tilly contracted with Drs. Roger and K. Warner to conduct the study. 2. The conclusions of the Baker Tilly study were presented to the school board in July 2019. The study included analyses of the school district's enrollment trends, finances, programs and services, staffing, and facilities. The study resulted in a 57-page report that contained a number of conclusions and recommendations. In relevant part, the study recommended the district close 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. The recommendations were significantly and substantially predicated on the school district's past enrollment decline, the school district's future projected enrollment decline, the resultant underutilization of the school district's elementary and middle school levels, leading to increased cost and ineffectiveness, a declining general fund balance, and past and projected future general fund budget reductions. 4. The school district's enrollment is declining. A, over the 10-year span of time from 2009 to 2010 through 2018-2019, the school district's enrollment declined by 1,424 students, or 15.5%, from 9,858 students in 2009-2010 to 8,334 students in 2018-2019. B, the enrollment decline was steady, with the number of enrolled students declining in 10 consecutive years from 2009-2010 through 2018-2019. Over the next 5 years, the school district's enrollment is projected to further decline from 8,334 students in 2018-2019 to 7,598 students in 2023-24, representing a net loss of 736 students, or 8.8%. D, based on the past and projected future enrollment declines, the school district will have lost the equivalent of 90 class sections, assuming an average class section size of 25 students per section, over the 15-year span of time from 2009-2010 through 2023-24. E, the school district's net loss of students through open enrollment migration during the 2017-2018 school year was 1,556 students, while an additional 1,248 students out-migrated from the school district to non-public charter and homeschool settings. 5, the school district's general fund balance is declining. A, the school district has lost significant general fund revenue as a result of declining enrollment and student out-migration, and is projected to further experience revenue losses as a result of declining enrollment and student out-migrations in the future. B, the school district's general fund balance has declined by $7,698,627, or 32.7% over the 5-year span of time from 2012-2013 to 2017-2018. 6, using the state of Minnesota selected guidelines for school facilities as a guide for applicable square footage of school buildings, elementary schools with enrollments of 500 students or less are constructed to allocate between 125 to 150 square feet per student. Employing that standard, 6 of the school district's elementary schools are grossly underutilized, and 2 of the district's 3 middle schools are grossly underutilized. 7, in light of the school district's current building capacity enrollment, closing 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school is necessary and practicable to put the school district in the best position to serve its students, families, and communities. Underutilized schools produce negative consequences for both finances and academic programming. Closing these schools will enable the district to more efficiently, reliably, and cost-effectively offer robust, consistent, and quality academic programming for all students. 8, the school district engaged the services of Dr. Roger Warner to serve as the community engagement meetings facilitator with the assistance of of Assistant Superintendent Brian Gersich. Dr. Warner and Assistant Superintendent Gersich presented information from the study at 6 community focus groups, 1 design team meeting with principals and parent representatives, and 1 meeting with administration. During these 8 meetings, community members and school district faculty provided feedback regarding the recommendation to close schools and the choice of which schools to close. 9, Dr. Warner presented the administration's recommendations for the sites identified for closure on November 14, 2019, and provided a memorandum which included the criteria used, sites identified, and rationale for selecting those buildings. In making its recommendations for which schools were necessary and practicable to close, the administration considered the following factors. A, lowest geographic risk of losing students to a nearby school district via open enrollment. B, oldest building, greatest need for update, greatest need for capital improvement. C, smallest overall capacity. D, smallest actual current enrollment. E, least cost-effective or economical to operate. F, least flexible for future programming. 10, based on examination of the school district's 10 elementary schools in light of the factors above, 4 elementary schools were identified as possible candidates for closure: Ron Elementary, Vista View Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Sioux Trail Elementary. These schools met multiple of the factors listed above. The other schools met significantly fewer factors. 11, although it is the school district's smallest elementary school, Ron Elementary School is determined to be highly vulnerable to geographic risk of losing students. Therefore, it is not recommended that Ron Elementary School be closed. 12, Marion W. Savage Elementary School is the oldest, least modern, and least flexible elementary school in the district. It has the 3rd smallest enrollment and is the least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practicable that Marion W. Savage be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 13, of the remaining 2 options, Vista View and Sioux Trail, Vista View has a greater capacity, a greater enrollment, lower utility costs per student, and fewest square feet per student. Sioux Trail Elementary School has the 3rd smallest capacity, 2nd smallest current enrollment, and is the 3rd least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practicable that Sioux Trail Elementary School be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 14, Metcalf Middle School is the oldest of the 3 middle schools, has the lowest enrollment, has the highest utility cost per square foot, has the 2nd smallest capacity, and has the 2nd highest number of square feet per student. Eagle Ridge Middle School is the newest, most modern middle school facility. Nicollet Middle School is the largest middle school facility, is the center for the school district after-school food service production, and its operation is pivotal to providing utilities to its site sister, Sky Oaks Elementary School. For these reasons, it is necessary and practical that Metcalf Middle School be the middle school to close. 15, school district administration considered all data compiled through its facility study, consulted recommendations, and public and staff feedback at various meetings in the public hearing. The school district considered alternatives to the closing of the schools, but determined these closures were necessary to effectively solve the identified concerns that have arisen due to the declining enrollment and underutilization of buildings.
Thank you, Director Schatz. I will take a motion on this resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Director Miller, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Discussion.
Question?
Yes.
So on page 2 of the resolution, the paragraph around the public hearing states the public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota statutes, yada, yada, beginning at 6:30 PM at the Diamond Head Education Center, but it doesn't actually have the date of the hearing in that paragraph.
This is true. So we can amend it.
I move to amend the resolution to include the date of the public hearing.
And the exact date was December 4th,
To include the date of December 4th,
2019.
2019, yes.
Do I have a motion to approve the amendment?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume, second? Second. Seconded by Director Hallwiger. Now, the amended version, we're not going to read the whole thing again, will include the date of the actual public hearing, December 4th, 2019. I will open it up for discussion or questions. Hearing none, it is a roll call vote for each of these 3 recommendations, for each of these 3 resolutions. Ms. Kenny, will you please call the roll? Aye.
Chester?
Aye.
Courier?
Aye.
Allwigger?
Aye.
Hume?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Schatz?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted. Now we will move to the resolution closing Marion W. Savage Elementary. Director Schatz.
Whereas a notice of public hearing on the question of the necessity and practicability of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School was published in the legal newspaper of the school district for 2 successive weeks on November 22 and November 29, 2019. And whereas the time and place of the meeting was set forth in the notice, and whereas Marion W. Savage Elementary School was identified in the notice as a school considered for closing, and whereas the reasons for the proposed closing were set forth in said notice, and whereas numerous opportunities were provided for members of the community to be heard, whether for or against the question of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School, including a September 23, 2019 design team meeting through feedback form, community focus group meetings held on October 3, October 7, October 8, October 9, October 14, and October 15, 2019, multiple site meetings for staff at each school held between October 1 and October 8, 2019, multiple site meetings held for middle school and high school students between October 8 and October 18, 2019, an online feedback form active from October 1 through October 20, 2019, and a meeting with Marion W. Savage families on November 18, 2019. And whereas on November 14, 2019, the school board heard a presentation and recommendation presented by consultant Dr. Roger Warner, and whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 123B.51, Subdivision 5 pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota. And whereas the school board has considered the following materials: July 2, 2019 Baker Tilly Organizational Analysis Study, July 8, 2019 presentation of Organizational Analysis Study by Dr. Roger Warner and Dr. K. Warner, August 8, 2019 Review of Facilities Study and Recommendations Presentation, September 12, 2019 Outline for Facility Study Process Update and Facilities Review Timeline, September 17, 2019 Facilities Realignment Presentation for Dr. Roger Warner, October 10, 2019 Facilities Realignment Process Update, October 24, 2019 Facilities Realignment Process Update, and the November 14, 2019 Memorandum and Presentation from Dr. Roger Warner. And whereas testimony materials were received during the course of the hearing by anyone in favor of or opposed to said closings, and the hearing was not deemed closed until everyone who requested to speak had an opportunity to do so. And whereas the school board has considered the recommendation of the administration to close Sioux Trail Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Metcalf Middle School pursuant to the recommendation of the consultant Warner, now therefore be it resolved that after considering the materials in the record, the testimony presented at said hearing held pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 123B.51, Subdivision 5, and the recommendations of the administration, the School Board of Independent School District Number 191, Burnsville-Egan Savage School District, hereby determines that the Marion W. Savage Elementary School located at 4819 West 126th Street, Savage, Minnesota, shall be closed effective the end of the 2019-20 school year for the following reasons and based on the following findings of fact. 1, in the spring of 2019, the school district commissioned Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, LLC, to perform an organizational analysis study to determine the status of the school districts and tender conclusions and recommendations for enhancing the effectiveness, efficiency, and cost-effectiveness of the school district. Baker Tilly contracted with Dr. Roger and K. Warren to conduct the study. 2, the conclusions of the Baker Tilly study were presented to the school board in July 2019. The study included analyses of the school district's enrollment trends, finances, programs and services, staffing, and facilities. The study resulted in a 57-page report that contained a number of conclusions and recommendations. In relevant part, the study recommended the district close 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. The recommendations were significantly and substantially predicated on the school district's past enrollment decline, the school district's future projected enrollment decline, the resultant underutilization of the school district's elementary and middle school levels, leading to increased cost and ineffectiveness, a declining general fund balance, and past and projected future general fund budget reductions. 4, the school district's enrollment is declining, Over the 10-year span of time from 2009, 2010 through 2018, 2019, the school district's enrollment declined by 1,524 students, or 15.5%, from 9,858 students in 2009, 2010 to 8,334 students in 2018, 2019. The enrollment decline was steady with the number of enrolled the enrollment decline was steady with the number of enrolled students declining in 10 consecutive years from 2009, 2010 through 2018, 2019. C, over the next 5 years, the school district's enrollment is projected to further decline from 8,334 students in 2018, 2019 to 7,598 students in 2023-24, representing a net loss of 736 students, or 8.8%. D, based on the past and projected future enrollment declines, the school district will have lost the equivalent of 90 class sections, assuming an average class section size of 25 students per section, over the 15-year span of time from 2009-2010 through 2023-24. E, the school district's net loss of students through open enrollment migration during the 2017-28 school year was 1,556 students, while an additional 1,248 students out-migrated to the school district to non-public charter and homeschool settings. 5, the school district's general fund balance is declining. A, the school district has lost significant general fund revenue as a result of declining enrollment and student out-migration, and is projected to further experience revenue losses as a result of declining enrollment and student out-migrations in the future. B, the school district's general fund balance has declined by $7,698,627, or 32.7% over the 5-year span of time from 2012-2013 to 2017-2018. 6, using the state of Minnesota selected guidelines for school facilities as a guide for applicable square footage of school buildings, elementary schools with enrollments of 500 students or less are constructed to allocate between 125 and 150 square feet per student. Employing that standard, 6 of the school district's elementary schools are grossly underutilized, and 2 of the district's 3 middle schools are grossly underutilized. 7, in light of the school district's current capacity building and enrollment, closing 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school is necessary and practicable to put the school district in the best position to serve its students, families, and communities. Underutilized schools produce negative consequences for both finances and academic programming. Closing these schools will enable the district to more efficiently, reliably, and cost-effectively offer robust, consistent, and quality academic programming for all students. 8, the school district engaged the services of Dr. Roger Warner to serve as the community engagement meetings facilitator with the assistance of Assistant Superintendent Brian Gersich. Dr. Warner, Assistant Superintendent Gersich, presented information from the study at 6 community focus groups, 1 design team meeting with principals and parent representatives, and 1 meeting with administration. During these 8 meetings, community members and school district faculty provided feedback regarding the recommendation to close schools and the choice of which schools to close. 9, Dr. Warner presented the administration's recommendations for the sites identified for closure on November 14, 2019, and provided a memorandum on which included the criteria used, sites identified, and rationale for selecting those buildings. In making its recommendations for which schools were necessary and practicable to close, the administration considered the following factors. A, lowest geographic risk of losing students to a nearby school district via open enrollment. B, oldest building, greatest need for update, greatest need for capital improvement. C, smallest overall capacity. D, smallest actual current enrollment. D, least cost-effective or economical to operate. F, least flexible for future programming. 10, based on examination of the school district's 10 elementary schools in light of the factors above, 4 elementary schools were identified as possible candidates for closure: Ron Elementary, Vista View Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Sioux Trail Elementary. These schools met multiple factors listed above. The other schools met significantly fewer factors. 11, although it is the school district's smallest elementary school, Ron Elementary School is determined to be highly vulnerable to geographic risk of losing students. Therefore, it is not recommended that Ron Elementary School be closed. 12, Marion W. Savage Elementary School is the oldest, least modern, least flexible elementary school in the district. It has the 3rd smallest enrollment, is the least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practicable that Marion W. Savage Elementary be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 13, of the remaining 2 options, Vista View and Sioux Trail, Vista View has a greater capacity, greater enrollment, lower utility costs per student, and fewer square feet per student. Sioux Trail Elementary School is the 3rd smallest capacity, 2nd smallest current enrollment, and is the 3rd least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practicable that Sioux Trail Elementary School be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 14, Metcalf Middle School is the oldest of the 3 middle schools, has the lowest enrollment, has the highest utility cost per square foot, has the 2nd smallest capacity, and has the 2nd highest number of square feet per student. Eagle Ridge Middle School is the newest, most modern middle school facility. Nicollet Middle School is the largest middle school facility. It's a center for school district after-school food service production, and its operation is pivotal to providing utilities to its site sister, Sky Oaks Elementary School. For these reasons, it is necessary and practical that Metcalf Middle School be the middle school to close. 15, school district administration considered all data compiled through its facility study, consultant recommendations, and public and staff feedback at various meetings in the public hearing. The school district considered alternatives to closing the schools, but determined these closures were necessary to effectively solve the identified concerns that have arisen due to declining enrollment and underutilization of buildings.
Thank you, Director Schatz. I will take a motion to amend page 2.
I should take a motion from the resolution.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'll take a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Director Miller, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Schatz.
Chair, I would like to move to amend the resolution, page 2, paragraph 3, to read, whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota statutes 123B.51, subdivision 5, pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 p.m. December 10th?
Fourth.
2019, at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota.
Thank you. We have a motion for the amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. All those in favor of approving the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the amendment passes. Now I will take discussion on the amended resolution. Director Courier.
Clarification, we are voting this resolution to close M.W. Savage.
M.W. Savage, correct. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Kenny, would you please call the roll?
Alt,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hallwigger,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz.
Aye.
And the resolution passes unanimously. Next, we will turn to the resolution closing Sioux Trail Elementary School. Director Schatz, would you like me to read?
Nope, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it down.
Okay.
Whereas a notice of public hearing on the question of the necessity and practicability of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School was published in the legal newspaper of the school district for 2 successive weeks on November 22 and November 29, 2019. And whereas the time and place of the meeting was set forth in the notice, and whereas Sioux Trail Elementary School was identified in the notice as a school considered for closing, and whereas the reasons for the proposed closing were set forth in said notice, and whereas numerous opportunities were provided for members of the community to be heard whether for or against the question of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School, including a September 23, 2019 design team meeting through a feedback form, community focus group meetings held on October 3, October 7, October 8, October 9, October 14, and October 15, 2019. Multiple site meetings for staff at each school held between October 1 and October 8, 2019. Multiple site meetings held for middle school and high school students between October 8 and October 18, 2019. An online feedback form active from October 1 through October 20, 2019. And a meeting with Sioux Trail families on November 19, 2019. And whereas on November 14, 2019, the school board heard a presentation and recommendation presented by consultant Dr. Roger Warner. And whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota statutes 123B.51, subdivision 5, pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota. And whereas the school board has considered the following materials: July 2, 2019, Baker-Tilly Organizational Analysis Study; July 8, 2019, presentation of organizational analysis study by Dr. Roger Warner and Dr. K. Warner; August 8, 2019, review of facility study and recommendations presentation; September 12, 2019, outline for facilities study process update and facilities review timeline; September 17, 2019, facilities realignment presentation for Dr. Roger Warner; October 10, 2019, facilities realignment process update; October 24, 2019, Facilities Realignment Process Update, and the November 14, 2019, Memorandum and Presentation from Dr. Roger Warner. And whereas testimony and materials were received during the course of the hearing by anyone in favor of or opposed to said closings, and the hearing was not deemed closed until everyone who requested to speak had an opportunity to do so. And whereas the school board has considered the recommendation of the administration to close Sioux Trail Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Metcalf Middle School pursuant to the recommendation of the consultant Warner, now therefore be it resolved that after considering the materials in the record, the testimony presented at said hearing held pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 123B.51 Subdivision 5 and the recommendations of the administration, the School Board of Independent School District Number 191, Burnsville-Egan Savage School District, hereby determines that the Sioux Trail Elementary School, located at 2801 River Hills Drive, Burnsville, Minnesota, shall be closed effective the end of the 2019-2020 school year for the following reasons and based on the following findings of fact. 1, in the spring of 2019, the school district commissioned Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, LLC, to perform an organizational analysis study to ascertain the status of the school district and tender conclusions and recommendations for enhancing the effectiveness, efficiency, and cost-effectiveness of the school district. Baker Tilly contracted with Drs. Roger and K. Warner to conduct the study. 2, the conclusions of the Baker Tilly study were presented to the school board in July 2019. The study included analyses of the school district's enrollment trends, finances, programs and services, staffing, and facilities. The study resulted in a 57-page report that contained a number of conclusions and recommendations. In relevant part, the study recommended the district close 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. 3, the recommendations were significantly and substantially predicated on the school district's past enrollment decline, the school district's future projected enrollment decline, the resultant underutilization of the school district's elementary and middle school levels, leading to increased cost and ineffectiveness, a declining general fund balance, and past and projected future general fund budget reductions. 4, the school district's enrollment is declining. A, over the 10-year span of time from 2009-2010 through 2018-2019, the school's enrollment declined by 1,524 students, or 15.5%, from 9,858 students in 2009-2010 to 8,334 students in 2018-2019. B, the enrollment decline was steady, with the number of enrolled students declining in 10 consecutive years from 2009-2010 through 2018-2019. C, over the next 5 years, the school district's enrollment is projected to further decline from 8,334 students in 2018-2019 to 7,598 students in 2023-24, representing a net loss of 736 students, or 8.8%. D, based on the past and projected future enrollment declines, the school district will have lost the equivalent of 90 class sections, assuming an average class section size of 25 students per section over the 15-year span of time from 2009-2010 through 2023-24. E, the school district's net loss of students through open enrollment migration during the 2017-2018 school year was 1,556 students, while an additional 1,248 students outmigrated from the school district to non-public charter and homeschool settings. 5, the school district's general fund balance is declining. A, the school district has lost significant general fund revenue as a result of declining enrollment and student outmigration, and is projected to further experience revenue losses as a result of declining enrollment and student outmigrations in the future. B, the school district's general fund balance has declined by $7,698,627, or 32.7% over the 5-year span of time from 2012-2013 to 2017-18. 6, using the state of Minnesota selected guidelines for school facilities as a guide for applicable square footage of school buildings, elementary schools with enrollments of 500 students or less are constructed to allocate between 125 to 150 square feet per student. Employing that standard, 6 of the school district's elementary schools are grossly underutilized, and 2 of the district's 3 middle schools are grossly underutilized. 7, in light of the school district's current capacity building capacity and enrollment, closing 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school is necessary and practicable to put the school district in the best position to serve its students, families, and communities. Underutilized schools produce negative consequences for both finances and academic programming. Closing these schools will enable the district to more efficiently, reliably, and cost-effectively offer robust, consistent, and quality programming for all students. 8, the school district engaged the services of Dr. Roger Warner to serve as the community engagement meetings facilitator with the assistance of Assistant Superintendent Brian Gersich. Dr. Warner and Assistant Superintendent Gersich presented information from the study at 6 community focus groups, 1 design team meeting with principals and parent representatives, and 1 meeting with administration. During these 8 meetings, community members and school district faculty provided feedback regarding the recommendation to close schools and the choice of which schools to close. 9, Dr. Warner presented the administration's recommendation for the sites identified for closure on November 14, 2019. and provide a memorandum which included the criteria used, sites identified, and rationale for selecting those buildings. In making its recommendations for which schools are necessary and practical to close, the administration considered the following factors. A, lowest geographic risk of losing students to a nearby school district via open enrollment. B, oldest building, greatest need for update, greatest need for capital improvement. C, smallest overall capacity. D, smallest actual current enrollment. E, least cost-effective or economical to operate. F, least flexible for future programming. 10, based on examination of the school district's 10 elementary schools in the light of the factors above, 4 elementary schools were identified as possible candidates for closure: Ron Elementary, Vista View Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Sioux Trail Elementary. These schools met multiple of the factors listed above. The other schools met significantly fewer factors. 11, although it is the school district's smallest and elementary school, Ron Elementary School was determined to be highly vulnerable to geographic risk of losing students. Therefore, it is not recommended that Ron Elementary School be closed. 12, Marion W. Savage Elementary School is the oldest, least modern, and least flexible elementary school in the district. As the third smallest enrollment, is the least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practical that Marion W. Savage Elementary be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 13, of the remaining 2 options, Vista View and Sioux Trail, Vista View is the greater capacity, greater enrollment, lower utility cost per student, and fewest square feet per student. Sioux Trail Elementary School has the third smallest capacity, second smallest current enrollment, as the third least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practical that Sioux Trail Elementary School be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 14, Metcalf Middle School is the oldest of the 3 middle schools, has the lowest enrollment, has the highest utility cost per square foot, has the second smallest capacity, and has the second highest number of square feet per student. Eagle Ridge Middle School is the newest, most modern middle school facility. Nicollet Middle School is the largest middle school facility, is the center for school district after-school food service production, and its operation is pivotal to providing utilities to its site sister, Sky Oaks Elementary School. For these reasons, it is necessary and practical that Metcalf Middle School be the middle school to close. 15, school district administration considered all data compiled through its facility study, consultant recommendations, and public and staff feedback at various meetings in the public hearing. The school district considered alternatives to the closing of the schools, but determined these closures were necessary to effectively solve the identified concerns that have arisen due to the declining enrollment and underutilization of buildings.
Thank you, Director Schatz. I will take a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Director Miller, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Yes,
like
Director
to-
Miller.
Like to present a motion for the resolution, to modify the resolution to read, whereas, page 2, paragraph 3, whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota statutes 123B 51 subdivision 5 pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 p.m. December 4th, 2019 at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota.
Thank you. I will take a second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the amendment is passed. Now, we are looking at the amended resolution, which now includes the date December 4th, 2019. Is there discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Kenny, would you please call the roll?
Alt,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Nay.
Allwiger,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz.
Aye.
The motion passes. There
Go on, sir.
There is a procedural correction that we need to make. I made an error, and we did not vote on the amendment to the first resolution. We had a first and a second, and so we will redo that to make sure that.
One for Metcalf.
The one for Metcalf, yes. We will not.
Open the whole amendment, I believe, right?
I'm sorry?
You need to open the amendment.
We're going to back.
correct the- yeah.
Yes, we need to roll it all the way back, exactly. So I will take a motion to approve the first resolution to close Metcalf Middle School.
So moved.
Actually, no,
Wait, what?
I'm sorry, I'll take a motion to approve the recommendation to close Metcalf Middle School.
So moved.
Moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Hume.
Okay. And then I move to amend the resolution to close Metcalf Middle School so that reads page 2, paragraph 3, whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 123B.51, subdivision 5, pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 p.m. December 4th, 2019, at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota.
Thank you. I'll take a second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Discussion on the amendment to the resolution. Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the amendment passes. Now we will go back to considering the amended resolution. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none. Ms. Kenny, will you please call the roll?
Alt,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Allwigger,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz.
Aye. The resolution passes.
Director Alt, point of
Yes.
order.
Yes.
Given that we have still a significant amount of work in front of us, and also given because we have a significant amount of work in front of us, I move that we recess for 5 minutes. Let's take a 5-minute break.
Take a 5-minute break.
Go ahead for a second.
I'll second that. All those in favor
You don't
of a
need to vote on it,
recess?
actually.
5-minute,
Let's find out.
well, 5-minute recess?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-minute recess. Eric. are back.
Really, I'm not, but I can.
And again, we have another procedural correction because, what? Huh? Yep. Oh, yeah, it was on the whole time. We are being informed by our attorney that we need to make sure that we reread the entire Metcalf resolution fully and go through the voting process so that the process around the Metcalf Middle School closure is identical to each of the other two in process. So with that, one last time, Director Schatz.
Whereas a notice of public hearing on the question of the necessity and practicability of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School was published in the legal newspaper of the school district for 2 successive weeks on November 22 and November 29, 2019. And whereas the time and place of the meeting was set forth in the notice, and whereas Metcalf Middle School is identified in the notice as a school considered for closing, and whereas the reasons for the proposed closing were set forth in said notice, and whereas numerous opportunities were provided for members of the community to be heard, whether for or against the question of closing Sioux Trail Elementary School, Marion W. Savage Elementary School, and Metcalf Middle School, including at a September 23, 2019 design team meeting through feedback forum, community focus group meetings held on October 3, October 7, October 8, October 9, October 14, and October 15, 2019, multiple site meetings for staff at each school held between October 1 and October 8, 2019, multiple site meetings held for middle school and high school students between October 8 and October 18, 2019, an online feedback forum active from October 1 through October 20, 2019, and a meeting with Metcalf families on November 18, 2019. And whereas on November 14, 2019, the school board heard a presentation and recommendation presented by consultant Dr. Roger Warner, and whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 123B.51 Subdivision 5, pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 p.m. in the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota. And whereas the school board has considered the following materials: July 2, 2019, Baker Tilly Organizational Analysis Study, July 8, 2019, presentation of Organizational Analysis Study by Dr. Roger Warner and Dr. K. Warner, August 8, 2019, Review of Facility Study and Recommendations presentation, September 12, 2019, Outline for a Facility Study Process Update and Facilities Review Timeline, September 17, 2019, Facilities Realignment presentation for Dr. Roger Warner, October 10, 2019, Facilities Realignment Process Update, October 24, 2019, Facilities Realignment Process Update, and the November 14, 2019, Memorandum and Presentation for Dr. Roger Warner. And whereas testimony materials were received during the course of the hearing by anyone in favor of or opposed to said closings, and the hearing was not deemed closed until everyone who requested to speak had an opportunity to do so. And whereas the school board has considered the recommendation of the administration to close Sioux Trail Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Metcalf Middle School pursuant to the recommendation of the consultant Warner, now therefore be it resolved that after considering the materials in the record, the testimony presented at said hearing held pursuant to Minnesota Statutes 123B.51, Subdivision 5, and the recommendations of the administration, the School Board of Independent School District Number 191, Burnsville-Eagan Savage School District, hereby determines that Metcalf Middle School, located at 2250 Diffley Road, Burnsville, Minnesota, shall be closed effective the end of the 2019-2020 school year, for the following reasons and based on the following findings of fact. 1, in the spring of 2019, the school district commissioned Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors, LLC, to perform an organizational analysis study to ascertain the status of the school district and tender conclusions and recommendations for enhancing the effectiveness, efficiency, and cost-effectiveness of the school district. Baker Tilly contracted with Drs. Roger and Kate Warner to conduct the study. 2, the conclusions of the Baker Tilly study were presented to the school board in July 2019. The study included analyses of the school district's enrollment trends, finances, programs and services, staffing, and facilities. The study resulted in a 57-page report that contained a number of conclusions and recommendations. In relevant part, the study recommended the district close 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school at the end of the 2019-2020 school year. 3, the recommendations were significantly and substantially predicated on the school district's past enrollment decline, the school district's future projected enrollment decline, the resultant underutilization of the school district's elementary and middle school levels, leading to increased cost and ineffectiveness, declining general fund balance, and past and projected future general fund budget reductions. 4, the school district's enrollment is declining. A, over the 10-year span of time from 2009-2010 through 2018-2019, the school district's enrollment declined by 1,524 students, or 15.5%, from 9,858 students in 2009-2010 to 8,334 students in 2018-2019. B, the enrollment decline was steady with the number of enrollment students declining in 10 consecutive years from 2009-2010 through 2018-2019. C, over the next 5 years, the school district's enrollment is projected to further decline from 8,334 students in 2018-2019 to 7,598 students in 2023-24, representing a net loss of 736 students, or 8.8%. D, based on the past and projected future enrollment declines, the school district will have lost the equivalent of 90 class sections, assuming an average class section size of 25 students per section, over the 15-year span of time from 2009-2010 through 2023-24. E, the school district's net loss of students through open enrollment migration during the 2017-2018 school year was 1,556 students, while an additional 1,248 students out-migrated from the school district to non-public charter and homeschool settings. 5, the school district's general fund balance is declining. A, the school district has lost significant general fund revenue as a result of declining enrollment and student outmigration, and is projected to further experience revenue losses as a result of declining enrollment and student outmigrations in the future. B, the school district's general fund balance has declined by $7,698,627, or 32.7% over the 5-year span of time from 2012-2013 to 2017-2018. 6, using the state of Minnesota's selected guidelines for school facilities as a guide for applicable square footage of school buildings. Elementary schools with enrollments of 500 students or less are constructed to allocate between 125 to 150 square feet per student. Employing that standard, 6 of the school district's elementary schools are grossly underutilized, and 2 of the district's 3 middle schools are grossly underutilized. 7, in light of the school district's current building capacity enrollment, closing 2 elementary schools and 1 middle school is necessary and practicable to put the school district in the best position to serve its students, families, and communities. Underutilized schools produce negative consequences for both finances and academic programming. Closing these schools will enable the district to more effectively, reliably, and cost-effectively offer robust, consistent, and quality academic programming for all students. 8, the school district engages the services of Dr. Roger Warner to serve as the community engagement meetings facilitator with the assistance of Assistant Superintendent Brian Gersich. Dr. Warner and Assistant Superintendent Gersich presented information from the study at 6 community focus groups, 1 design team meeting with principals and parent representatives, and 1 meeting with administration. During these 8 meetings, community members and the school district faculty provided feedback regarding the recommendation to close schools and the choice of which schools to close. 9, Dr. Warner presented the administration's recommendations for the sites identified for closure on November 14, 2019, provided a memorandum which included the criteria used, sites identified, and rationale for selecting those buildings. In making its recommendations for which schools were necessary and practicable to close, the administration considered the following factors. A, lowest geographic risk of losing students to a nearby school district via open enrollment. B, oldest building, greatest need for update, greatest need for capital improvement. C, smallest overall capacity. D, smallest actual current enrollment. E, least cost-effective or economical to operate. F, least flexible for future programming. 10, based on an examination of the school district's 10 elementary schools in light of the factors above, 4 elementary schools were identified as possible candidates for closure: Ron Elementary, Vista View Elementary, Marion W. Savage Elementary, and Sioux Trail Elementary. These schools met multiple of the factors listed above. The other schools met significantly fewer factors. 11, although it is the school district's smallest elementary school, Ron Elementary School is determined to be highly vulnerable to geographic risk of losing students. Therefore, it's not recommended that Ron Elementary School be closed. 12, Marion W. Savage Elementary School is the oldest, least modern, least flexible elementary school in the district. Has the 3rd smallest enrollments, the least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practical that Marion W. Savage Elementary be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 13, of the remaining 2 options, Vista View and Sioux Trail, Vista View has a greater capacity, greater enrollment, lower utility costs per students, and fewer square feet per student. Sioux Trail Elementary School is the 3rd smallest capacity, 2nd smallest current enrollment, is the 3rd least cost-effective to operate. For these reasons, it is necessary and practicable that Sioux Trail Elementary School be one of the 2 elementary schools to close. 14, Metcalf Middle School is the oldest of the 3 middle schools, has the lowest enrollment, the highest utility cost per square foot, has the 2nd smallest capacity, and has the 2nd highest number of square feet per student. Eagle Ridge Middle School is the newest, most modern middle school facility. Nicollet Middle School is the largest middle school facility. It's the Center for School District After-School Food Service Production, and its operation is pivotal in providing utilities to its sister site, Sky Oaks Elementary School. For these reasons, it is necessary and practicable that Metcalf Middle School be the middle school to close. 15, school district administration consider all data compiled through its facility study, consultant recommendations, and public and staff feedback at various meetings in the public hearing. The school district considered alternatives to the closing of the schools, but determined these closures were necessary to effectively solve the identified concerns that have arisen due to declining enrollment and underutilization of buildings.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Director Miller, second.
Second.
Seconded.
I move to amend the resolution on the table to close the Metcalf Middle School so that page 2, paragraph 3 reads, whereas a public hearing on said closings was conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 123B 51 Subdivision 5 pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 PM December 4th at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Thank you. I'm going to modify my amendment to read, whereas a public hearing on said closing was conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 123B.51 Subdivision 5 pursuant to said notice by the school board beginning at 6:30 PM December 4th, 2019 at the Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville, Minnesota.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Is there discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the amendment as read, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the amendment carries. Now going back to the resolution as amended, is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving. Oh, got to take a roll call. I'm sorry, yes.
Alt,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hallwigger,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Schatz.
Aye.
Thank you, and my apologies for the mistake, guys. I would like to give board members an opportunity, before we move on to the next topic, if anyone wants to make a statement of their own. I have a statement myself prepared.
I do. I didn't make it before, but I'd like it to be on the record.
Sure.
I have been affiliated with ISD 191 for 32 years. This timeline gives me a unique background on which to base my decisions regarding our school closures. Let me share only 3 sets of the miscellaneous facts and experiences I've acquired and used in my decision-making through the years. I'm going to also say, by the way, this is the last you'll hear about this because the decision has been made, and forevermore, I was taught by previous board members, will I bring it up again?
Fair point. Thank you, Dee Dee.
1, I have served at Gideon Pond, the district office, BHS, Nicollet, Cedar, Boz, and Sioux Trail. However, this means while an employee of 191, I only served in Dakota County schools. But I have served while growing and adding schools, and now while we're shrinking and closing schools. After retiring as a school administrator, this is the second, number 2, after retiring as a school administrator, I subsequently worked in a Scott County school district in community education and served on the Scott County Historical Society Board. It was while working there that I learned that 1/3 of 191 school district that resides in Scott County is not recognized at the Minnesota Department of Education as Scott County schools because our district is in Dakota County, our district office. That has effects on county decisions made by MDE and others, and we have to be vigilant about that. 3, our school district is very, in capital letters, wide geographically east to west. I put an election sign on a lawn in our district that was nearly in the shadow of Blue Cross Blue Shield campus of Egan. And in the past 6 years, 2 experiences made me aware of our west border. First, the school board had a workshop meeting at a newly acquired Emerson building, which was in our district, kitty corner from Valley Fair in Shakopee. Second, the city of Shakopee had to come to the ISD 191 school board for an approval of their TIF. An unusual fact about that is that originally they had gone to the Shakopee School Board. The land they were TIFing was in 191. Given this qualitative background I've amassed, of which I've just given you a sample, I now face the resolutions of closing schools. Of the consultant's priority factors, geographic risk was ranked number 1. With 2 East Side schools on the closure list, I think geographic risk is blinking in neon. I cannot support closing 2 East Side schools. My sense of fairness kicks in. Fairness in my thinking says an East Side, a geographic middle, and a West Side school should be the recommendation. Therefore, I will not be supporting the closing of Sioux Trail School. With regrets but understanding, I will be supporting the closing of Metcalf and N.W. Savage schools. Some final thoughts. I mentioned this at our workshop. In the heart of the city of Burnsville, 2 major apartment complexes are under construction and will be opening in 2020. Another apartment complex will be constructed at the southeast corner of Highway 13 and Nicollet beginning soon. I'm optimistic that our school closings are temporary, and despite this current closing process, our curriculum, programs, services, and all of our staff, especially teachers, are proportionately still here for our students. And I didn't say it.
Thank you, Director Courier.
Thank you for letting me say it after the fact, but you won't hear me say it again.
Well, I appreciate you sharing.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to make a statement? Director Chester.
Yeah. I know all of us have struggled with having to make this decision, and it's not an easy one to make. And even driving into the driving into the parking lot today, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to decide. But logic tells me and told me that what is more painful, shifting bricks and mortar or having to deal with budget cuts that are going to affect our students across the board and to cut essential programming. And so that is why I made the decision to move forward in agreeing with the rest of the board and the closure of our schools.
Thank you, Director Chester. Anybody else? Director Miller.
I'm not going to comment on the resolutions as they landed, except what I want to comment on is I've said this before, I am so overwhelmingly impressed. I'll use technical terms. I'd like to say heart full of love, but impressed with this board. You know, I know all of us came here with a lot of struggles and a lot of challenges around this decision. Dr. Courier, I totally appreciate your perspective and your take on it. And, you know, I'm overwhelmed with your insistence that you'll move forward with it too. So, you know, I just thank you guys. This is, you know, this has been a tough time, but the fact that we're not torn asunder by this, that's what's most important. So.
Thank you. And I have a statement prepared. I want to start by thanking everyone on staff who has supported this process, ensured it was transparent, and engaged our community. I want to thank Dr. Warner for providing his expertise both in evaluating our facilities and providing his recommendation. I want to thank the members of our staff and 191 community who have made their voices heard. It's never been clearer how much you care about our community schools. Lastly, I want to thank the other members of this board. I'm sure that none of us hoped or even imagined we'd be doing this when we first decided to campaign. Dr. Warner is a neutral, third-party expert. His recommendations were based on the criteria developed by him and with public input. Through our community focus groups and online forums, the community told us they agree that closing schools is the right step. The recommendation reflects the criteria identified by our community: age and needed repairs, less likely to result in lost enrollment due to geography, and smallest capacity or enrollment. Because of the shape of our district, Nearly every school attendance boundary touches the edge where families might be tempted to drive their students to a nearby school in another district. It's not right to say that closing schools is a good thing. This is a sad day, especially for those who have been closely connected to each of the three schools, M.W. Savage, Sioux Trail, and Metcalf Middle School. But I believe our community showed it believes this is a necessary thing. More than that, I believe these changes can and will be a catalyst for District 191 schools. I believe in our community, including our families and our partners. I believe in our teachers and principals and educational assistants and support staff. I believe in our district leaders and in Superintendent Battle. Given the opportunity to reimagine our schools, they will imagine and then build a system that serves all students, that helps all students find their passions and prepare to succeed in their futures. If we do our jobs well enough, I believe these closings will be temporary, as originally mentioned by Director Courier, and that we'll find a need for them again before too long. With that, thank you, everybody. Next, we are being asked to approve scheduling a special board meeting on December 19th, 2019. And I will take a motion. Let's see, let me find the recommendation. Here we go. Is it more complicated? Recommendation is that the Board of Education approve scheduling a special board meeting on Thursday, December 19th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. at Diamond Head Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway, Burnsville. The purpose of the meeting is boundaries, facilities, and the FY21 budget. I will take a motion to approve the recommendation. So moved by Director Schott, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Courier. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Next, we are being asked to approve the financial audit report for 2018-19. I'd like to welcome Lisa Ryder, Executive Director of Business Services, back to the speaking table.
Thank you. As you have heard the report from our auditing firm earlier this evening, the recommendation that is included in the board packet does lay out some of those key facts. Again, I won't repeat them. I will read the recommendation that the Board of Education approve the financial audit report for 2018-2019.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Moved by Director Chester, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hallwigger. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Staying with Lisa, we're being asked to approve final certification of property tax levy payable 2020.
Thank you. As we heard earlier in the Truth and Taxation hearing, the reasons for increase in certain areas, the recommendation that is in the board packet does list by category the dollar amounts. So if you don't mind, I'll read that in full. The recommendation that the Board of Education certify the final property tax levy for taxes payable in 2020 as follows. The general referendum market value voter approved for $15,247,948.55. The general referendum market value other, $6,427,084.35. The general net tax capacity voter approved, $3,109,328.83. The general net tax capacity other, $6,710,880.67. The community service, $1,809,068.06. The general debt service, voter approved, $3,626,612.47. The general debt service other, $5,943,212.51. The other post-employment benefit pension other, $1,368,863.64 for a sum total of $44,242,999.08.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Moved by Director Courier, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Schatz. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Next, again with Lisa, we are being asked to adopt a resolution establishing combined precincts.
The state law changed a couple years back where it now requires that by December 31st of every year, we must identify the combined polling places that would be in effect should there be a requirement for an election that is on a day other than a statewide election. Therefore, what we have done is we've talked with the cities of Burnsville and Savage and have clarified, their polling places as well. And so this is in conjunction with what we know from them as well. Our locations are not changed from what we have had this past year, but we must do this action on an annual basis. The resolution that is attached here in the board packet is rather lengthy. I can read the beginning portion. Do you want me to read the full?
I think we've always read just the recommendation.
Yep.
That's fine.
Okay, so the recommendation that the board adopts a resolution establishing combined polling places for certain multiple precincts and designating hours during which the polling places will remain open for voting for school district elections not held on the day of a statewide election.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Moved by Director Chester, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Discussion.
Just point of clarification. So the new law states that we need to do this in preceding the coming year on an annual basis.
Yes.
And then I see, looking at the resolution, we list the actual polling places there. So it can't be changed later. I'm just concerned about the possibility of a future board decides to do something and they're going to hold it in one polling place or something like that.
Every year, the board will take action on this. It can be changed on an annual basis. And should there be some unique circumstances where one of the locations listed here is not possible to be holding an election at, then we have mechanisms through the state statute to address that.
Okay.
I think you just answered the question that I had.
Okay?
Because I noticed that 2 of the combined polling places are Metcalf and Sioux Trail.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great questions. Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the recommendation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion carries. Next, last item on the regular board agenda, Mr. Helke, principal of the high school.
I bet you wish you were up at the top of that agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking
being
around.
here.
Yes.
No problem. Well, thank you, Chair Alt and members of the board and Superintendent Battle. This is always an exciting time of the year as we get ready to prepare for course registration. I think it's a reminder of the opportunities that are available to our students in 191. It was exciting to be here to hear the pathway presentation for elementaries. I know when Vision 191 launched 4 or 5 years ago, it was always the intent that there would be a cohesive K-12 alignment of our pathways, and I know the hope was that what started at the high school would eventually come down to the other grade levels. With that said, the first part of the registration process is really developing a course catalog. So we have a reference for our families and our students to use to look at the opportunities. So the recommendation that I bring forth this evening is that the Board of Education approves the additions, deletions, and changes to the 2020-21 secondary course catalog as noted below. And then you had received the list of recommendations that specifically highlight the different additions, deletions, and changes.
Great. Thank you very much. I will take a motion to approve the recommendation. Moved by Director Schatz, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Questions or discussion?
Just a couple quick things. In our officers' meeting, we talked a little bit about the history of why we do this, because we weren't exactly sure, because there isn't a policy requirement for this. But really, it's about celebrating what we're doing at the high school, because it's such an awesome course catalog. So I just want to touch on a couple of things in here. Math skills, when you're dropping the for life on it, but so this is that meme I always see on the internet about how we should be teaching kids to balance their checkbook. Well, nobody has a checkbook anymore, but is that correct? I mean, it's
So the math skills classes are actually courses that are in place to help support our students that have special needs with IEPs. And so a lot of times in those courses, they're designed to parallel the content that's in the regular courses, but oftentimes in a way that provides a bit more relevance and in ways that allow students to maybe better apply the math knowledge.
I see housing and interior design, advanced manufacturing. Those are possibilities for the future, but leadership and cybersecurity, it's amazing stuff.
Yeah, so all of those at the end were just listed as possibilities for the future. Another thing that was kind of a cornerstone of the pathway work when it started was to always be looking at opportunities that reflect the needs that are out there in our workforce, some opportunities that reflect the needs that our students express to us. And so some of those examples are cybersecurity. That's an incredibly growing field that's out there. Advanced manufacturing, there's lots and lots of employment needs for that. That's a sector of the market that is definitely hot at this moment in time. And leadership is one of those courses that has been floated out there as an idea because we have so many of our students at the high school that are just engaging themselves and getting themselves involved in a variety of different ways to be leaders, not only in our school but in our community.
Well, as we move the pathways down, there'd be opportunity for leadership there too. So, great, good.
Good point. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the secondary course catalog, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will be adjourning to a policy committee of the whole to discuss new policy 509.5, intra-district transfer or variance enrollment. After that, we will adjourn to a closed session as permitted by Minnesota Statute 13D.03 to discuss ISD 191's labor negotiation strategy. I will take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Director Schatz, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Chester. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And we will just move right into